Members, please be upstanding for the Vice Chairman. Please be upstanding for the Vice Chairman.
Thank you, colleagues. Welcome back. Do please be seated. Hope we had a nice lunch. Just before we go on, for anyone who doesn't have the lunch provided by our catering staff in the Rufford Suite, which we pay for, I hasten to add, give it a try, because I think those of us who are there today thought it was an excellent lunch. They do a fantastic job, and it's good to support them. So bear that in mind, future meetings, I would say. So
good to socialise.
So, right, let's.
Serves you right.
Yes. Comes to something else to put the specs on to everything, right. So, we're on to item, and also bearing in mind what I said earlier on, we have got a busy agenda this afternoon, so please do keep that in mind. We do want to get through everything. So, item 9. Supporting our armed forces strategy. It's an update on progress and future plans. And Councillor Geith Girling, would you move the recommendations, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Before I go into the report, though, I'd just like to thank you for presenting me with the award this morning. But like any award, it's never just about the person that receives it. It's often about the team, and this is no exception. As a Grenadier, I'm very proud of my heritage and spent quite a bit of my time serving as an armoured infantry soldier. Now, anyone who served will know that means working closely with the Armoured Division. So it's great that my lead officer is from the Armoured Corps. You have to speak slowly and shout loud to understand you, but it's all part of the process. So we have the elite, that's me, and we have the Armoured Division, that's Neil. I also have Councillor John O'Lee, who was in the infantry, and it's always good to have somebody to carry your kit.
Cheers.
And of course, I have Councillor Errol Henry. He served in the RAF. Now, I'm not saying the army was better, but no kid ever in the history of playing games said, let's go and play RAF. Seriously though, I'd like to thank you for your support in making sure that we can do what the council's doing in part of this report. Sorry, Errol. Now to the report, Chairman. The report before you highlights some of the work being carried out in... Sorry? Did somebody say something? Oh, right, okay.
Sneeze.
Sorry. So the report before you highlights some of the work being carried out in support of our Armed Forces family. For those who may not know, the Armed Forces family is serving Armed Forces personnel, reservists, veterans, and volunteer adult cadet instructors. Without those instructors, there would be no cadet force. You will see in paragraph 4 that we now have a dedicated officer and a £20,000 budget. What this has done is allow us to set a 4-year plan and drive our support for the Armed Forces family across Nottinghamshire. I'm very pleased to say that £20,000 has helped bring in significantly more money to be able to support those who need it. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the leader for supporting my request for a full-time officer and agreeing to fund this role. It is very much appreciated. I would also like to give a gentle nudge to those sitting on boroughs and district councils. Some of you, I know, are leaders and deputy leaders, that a full-time officer and a little bit of funding would go a long way and would mean that all councils in Nottinghamshire could blaze the trail and be a leading light for the rest of the country in how we can support those who give so much. Chairman, the activities we have held are of great importance and we have seen old friendships rekindled, new ones made, and most importantly, we have demonstrated this council's support for the sacrifices that have been made and are being made. I am also proud of the fact that, as far as I'm aware, we are the first local authority in the country to celebrate our Armed Forces family have achieved in the business world with the first ever Boots and Berry Awards. This was an incredible event with 150 guests attending our Black Tie Awards, and the Lord Lieutenant Sir John Peace, the King's representative, was our guest of honour. I'll just go through some of the categories that we awarded and who actually won them, because I think that's really important that we recognise them in this meeting, Chairman. So the Employee Forces Hero Award, which is acknowledging the outstanding commitment and performance within the workplace, was presented to Gillian Walsh from Ashfield District Council. I think I'll have a round of applause for these people, please. And everybody who's ever met Gillian knows how passionate she is about the armed forces, and the support there. And she's the first one I've ever known to a 2.5 hour acceptance speech of her award. And no matter how much I tried to push her on a bit to get on with it, she carried on and she was determined to get her point across. So well done to her. The Employee Forces Hero Award, which is acknowledgement of the outstanding commitment and performance within the workplace, which was presented to both Experian and Newark-and-Shire District Council. So they've done a really good job. Again, you can applaud if you want, but if not, that's up to you. The Community Together Award provides an opportunity to recognise collaborative approaches to engagement, which was presented to the Nottinghamshire Police. And if anybody's met Steve Timperley, who is their Armed Forces champion, and he's actually a community support officer, I think, something like that. He's not actually got a rank or anything, and he's pushing and barging and telling chief inspectors and things what to do in terms of supporting police officers who have served. So he really deserved what he got. The Legacy Inspiration Award was given to individual who has demonstrated excellence in leading practice, projects or tasks, as well as demonstrating leadership. Was presented to, is now not the Deputy Lord Lieutenant because he's retired, Tim Richmond. And his support has been absolutely phenomenal, keeping the politics out of it all and where he's chaired the meeting. So big thank you to him. There was then 2 special awards. One you've seen me get, which I didn't know I was going to get, and I was really annoyed that I did. But anyway, the other one went to Sir John Peace for all the support he's done, and he thoroughly deserves it. As part of that award, so this is where some of the things that the £20,000 has gone towards was paying for that award. You know, we raised £1,650 on the night, and I was happy to present a cheque. Sorry, no, that's wrong. Refrain from that. On the night, I presented a cheque of £1,650, which entitled 22 cadets from low-income families to attend the annual camp, and that was come out the £20,000 to pay for that. And they, normally, they can't afford it, so it's a bursary for 22 cadets, which was brilliant. Just to stop clapping now, though. Yeah. And then during the evening, we raised £705, which has gone to the Soldiers, Sailors and Airmen's Families Association in SAPA, and that they've got that money now, I think. So that's brilliant. You can keep clapping then, yeah. So anyway, the award was sponsored by VA East Midlands, Arc Partnership and Scape, who thankfully have said that they're going to sponsor us for the next 2 years. So this is going to be an annual awards event now. Now what we're going to do, we're going to actually add categories, and we're going to sort of make it bigger and better. It's going to be a bigger venue so more people can come, because it was at full capacity at the, I nearly said the wrong word then, City Ground. And I was quite pleased with the colour scheme for the event was black and white. Being a Notts County fan, was quite nice at the Forest Ground. But anyway, it was an excellent night, and it's going to be bigger and better. So please encourage your businesses in your districts and boroughs or in your patches to sort of enter this, get people in. If they've got any armed forces people working for them, please get them to sort of apply and get in, because it's going to be a bigger and better do. I'm going to put some entertainment on this time. Chairman, I could go on about the work we are doing, but I don't want to. And I'll say a big thank you to the council actually for the support you've given me and the Armed Forces family. Without who we would be able to achieve what we have done. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Girling. I think we have Councillor Tom Smith who is seconding the motion, please.
Thank you, Chairman, Vice Chairman. I'm more than happy to second, and I'll reserve my right to speak.
Thank you very much. First speaker is Councillor Lee, and yes, Councillor Lee, and then Councillor Henry. Councillor Lee, please.
Chairman, thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure in supporting Councillor Keith Gullen in his role. I wasn't expecting to be asked, to be fair, and when I was, I jumped at the chance, or hopped at the chance, should I say? Absolute privilege. Just a little bit of background. Most of you know, but just a little bit of background is I was injured in October 2007, where I sustained an IED explosion to my right leg, and about 4 weeks later, I had an amputation that lost it. Without the support to my family, in particular from Keith Gullen, an organisation he's involved with, we would have struggled. So Keith 100% deserved his award. I know he doesn't like it, but he did deserve his award. He's done loads, but this county council has had a small part in my recovery, and I think I've mentioned it in the past. Is when I lost my leg, it became quite clear that my military service just couldn't commence, just wasn't feasible. So the MOD reached out to an organisation called Nottinghamshire County Council and see if they would be willing to give somebody like me a position. I was looking at being a social worker at the time, and a 6-week role of just looking and to see what the county council did turned into 18 months worth of work, where I ended up becoming a key worker for the Family Intervention Project. I then decided after the 18 months that I wanted to get involved in politics, so please blame them. And that's where my career and life completely changed, and why I wanted to get involved in politics. It's been an absolute pleasure to have been involved with the county council, however long I'm here for, to be able to change one life or two lives. And if it wasn't for the leader and this county council, and even the Labour opposition that were in power when I was injured, I probably wouldn't be here today. So thank you to everybody that has helped our serving soldiers, our veterans, and our family, because without you, more people wouldn't be here today. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. That's very moving. And Councillor Henry, please.
Yeah, thank you. You can laugh, Keith. It's nice to hear the inter-service banter that we have. I don't know if you understand it so much, but we were at an event last night, Keith. I think Councillor Callaghan and Councillor Camilleri was there. Councillor Carr was there as well last night. And having a conversation with Keith last night, the impression I got from the conversation is that you wished you were in the RAF. There you go. It's so thanks very much for the opportunity, really, to speak on this, because and for bringing this report really to council today. I would like to sort of congratulate you, Keith, for your way you work with this, the champion of this cause. I think you've been excellent, including Councillor Lee, and you've been a really, really good advocate for this council, for veterans, and that is good. I know our politics is very different, but the way we feel about this role, about the way we support our members, veterans, is exactly the same. Yeah, so thanks for that. Because when I left the RAF after nearly 20 years of service, serving in various parts of the world, including the Falkland Islands, I didn't get any support at all. There was no support from me. I was like abundant, really. I was all over the place, and I stumbled into social work, I think. So it wasn't about anybody trying to help and support me. It just happened to do that. And a lot of my colleagues who left the RAF at the same time, like me, were some people have died. Some people are on drugs, on alcohol. Some people are in prison. There was no support at all. I mean, I had to go to university, but I had to pay my own way. And in listening to the event last night, there was not that anymore. There is support in place now for people who want to go on to do something different, which is a credit really to this organisation. It's non-political, and I like that. So I hope that's to bear in mind here today. It isn't politics about those members that have sacrificed themselves really for this country, and we need we need to show some willingness, some kindness, and do what we can to support them. I also want to say about the officers as well that have been very supportive in delivering this strategy. They're making strides to ensure that armed forces veterans in this county are valued, supported, and empowered. Something that I didn't have. So that's it's important. And there's one officer or lead member. I know if he's listening, he's going to be embarrassed. He doesn't like to be. But Neil Bettison, I know he's Army. I know it's a shame he's Army. He should be RAF. Oh, I see. I beg your pardon. So he's not RAF. I wish he was, but he's outstanding. He's somebody that's he's driven us, he's helped us, he's supported us. He's set on some events that have been absolutely brilliant for veterans. The Breakfast Club is something that we think it's one of the outstanding things. I know we're doing it in Gedling as well, with the Breakfast Club for veterans, and that is a life-saving. And I do some things in the court sometimes, and it's unfortunate to see members of the armed forces presenting themselves at court because of their committed offences, because they're destitute. They feel, not the things I mentioned, which is valued. They don't feel valued. They don't feel supported, and they don't feel empowered. So we are doing a little bit to help that. I think this county council has been absolutely outstanding in doing that, and I thank them very much for that. I believe in the aim of the strategy as well. The aim of the strategy that every veteran should not be disadvantaged as a result of their service is a noble aim, and one which I think we all in this chamber agree with and will support. So I look forward to continue our work with you, with all of you, because I think it's not just about Keith, myself, and Councillor Lee. It's about all of us. Every single one of us as members here need to support us. So events like we had last night, we ought to have 3 or 4 councillors coming there. I think you all knew about it. Things like that, we need to see you there as well. Put yourself forward, show that you are in full support of what we're doing, and let veterans know that we are there for them, and this county council is there for them. Not just come in and talk about it, but to show that we are. Thank you very much. So I look forward to continuing my work with the armed forces as an armed forces advocate in delivering the strategy before after the 2028 target. Yeah, thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Henry. Councillor Meakin, please.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, and thank you for allowing me to speak. Paragraph 8 on the report details of some activities. First ever Boots and Berries Awards, Nottingham Forest Football Ground, which has already been alluded by Councillor Galing. As a Cabinet Member of Ashfield District Council, can I publicly thank Gillian Walsh and our Armed Forces Covenant Lead Officer. She won the Employer Forces Award, acknowledging her outstanding commitment and performance within our workplace. It is because of people like Gillian that we are delighted again to this year maintain our Gold Star Award, representing the highest possible badge of honour in the Employer Recognition Scheme Gold Awards. Because our awards that employ and support those who serve veterans and their families. This council is clearly committed, as Ashford are, to helping veterans. It has now been over 2 years since the council agreed to Councillor Hollis and Wilmot's suggestion of a feasibility study to provide free off-peak bus travel to all Army Forces veterans. Can I ask for your support in getting this council to get on with it so we can give them more to help the armed forces? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Meakin. Councillor Pringle, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I think we're fortunate in the chamber that we have governance from Councillor Bradley, Councillor Barnfather, Councillor Fowler, all those that lead, because what a set of misfits we have in here. That are probably some of the bravest people that I know. Sorry, was it? And I think very much so that the strategy of the armed forces that we present here is first class, and delivered through Keith, multi-award winning Councillor Keith Girling, I will have you know, who was humble as ever at every award ceremony. Would like to point out one thing which is being raised today, which is quite concerning, the fact that it was suggested that you would like to join the RAF. Well, that would have to be a huge cockpit. If you were sat in there, that would be a huge cockpit. So look, thank goodness you're a Grenadier Guard, Councillor Girling. Look, the strategy is fantastic. The strategy is fantastic. It's presented and led brilliantly by Keith. Errol, you're absolutely right in mentioning Neil Betterson, who again is a fantastic to support to these guys. So congratulations, long way at last. Keep going. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pringle. I don't think we have any other speakers on this. So, Councillor Tom Smith, you seconded. Did you want to, and you reserve your right to speak. Do you want to make any comments?
Thank you, Vice Chairman. I'm not sure my year in Mansfield Air Cadets when I was 15 qualifies me to speak at quite the same level, at quite the same level as our veterans. But nevertheless, Chairman, everything in this report is fantastic. Do please read it. The report highlights some of the fantastic work that we do. Chairman, very happy to support it.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Girling, you are the mover of the report. Would you like to sum up, please?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Councillor Meakin, I started writing down thank you for not doing your speech as long as Gillian, but then you said something about bus fares, and I actually don't know about that, so I don't know who's contacted me, but it certainly isn't on my radar. So if you want to, well, I don't. It's not, I think before you put me on the spot, we need to understand what it involves. But I do not recall receiving anything like that. So if you want to start that process again, then please do. But it might be me. It might have gone out of my head. So I'm not saying you haven't. I'm just saying I can't remember it. Okay, so please do. Thanks, Mike. It's always nice to get a compliment from anybody, but particularly from you, because I know you're a really genuine guy. And I was remiss of me not to say actually when I spoke about Councillor Henry, the fact that him being on the opposition before wouldn't have been allowed. So thank you for allowing him to come on as an advocate, because as Errol says, it's not about politics. This is about them out there that's maybe, even if they haven't had a scratched leg or something like that, they've put their lives on the line to do that. They sign a cheque saying, here's my life, do what you like with it, really. So thank you for allowing him to come onto this. And actually, I'll make a bit of a commitment, because I'm not convinced I've used them enough in this last year. So I'm going to make a commitment to start using you more and getting involved more, because I get focused on what I'm doing and sometimes forget about the fact you're there. So I'm sorry about that. And we've got a radio interview to do, apparently, that you said right at the beginning, which I'd love to be part of. So recommendations are on page 82. I recommend them. So,
thank you, Councillor Girling. We do indeed have the recommendations as shown, so we'll go to a vote on this now. To note the report, can I have a show of hands, please, in favour? And I think it's unanimous, isn't it? It better be. Yes. Thank you. So, executive report, key issues and activities. As set out in the Constitution, the leader has provided an executive report. The leader will move the receipt of the report for noting and may make a short statement introducing it. In the absence of the deputy leader, the report will be seconded by Councillor Barnfather, who will do so without speaking to it. No other members may speak on this item. No amendment can be tabled. So, Councillor Bradley, would you like to move your report, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman, however we refer to you today. You're doing a grand job. I'm not going to dwell on this for too long. It's all in the report, and we do now, as of today, have an opportunity to go backwards and forwards on this a little bit in the next part in terms of questions around the executive report. I'm grateful to colleagues who have taken that opportunity, and hopefully we can have some good conversations about the content of it. As I say, a lot of it is self-explanatory, but some fantastic events over the summer, and a huge contribution to our visitor economy. Grateful for all the work of officers around both the Tour of Britain and Nottinghamshire Day and all the other fantastic events that saw people flock out during some fantastic weather at points as well over the summer, which has been brilliant, and also the holiday activity and food programme, which I visited in a couple of locations as well over the course of the summer, and it's fantastic to see the impact and the support that has on all sorts of groups of people, particularly kids around our county, and the feedback I have to say from those people who organise that group. We kind of administer the funding for others, but the feedback about the work in Nottinghamshire County Council in terms of managing that and us as a partner was really, really positive as well, which was fantastic to hear. I want to pick up on some of the key decisions later on in the report. Particularly, we've had a bit of a debate earlier on about primary school investment and also school places. So pleased to be able to go and kind of break ground at the new Gateford Primary School, along with Councillor Girling and Taylor. You'll see in their plans to expand Worksop Secondary School and also a £9 million programme of school investment over the course of the next year, which brings it to nearly 30 million quid over 3 years in terms of investment in our school estate, which I think is a fantastic record to be proud of. Two things I wanted to add, in fact, one remiss of me. I wanted to mention the fact that, as it says in the report, we now have effectively a central resource for our new and emerging combined authority in the form of not just Mark Rogers, but a team of 7 people who are now helping us to act as a region, as opposed to 4 councils working together and starting to build proper plans and strategies and infrastructure for us to implement that, hopefully in the new year, subject to legislation, which is a big step forward. 2 things, as I was going to say, I just wanted to add that have happened since the publication of the report. They are the first meeting of our Step Fusion partnership, which was really, really positive a week or so ago. Councillor Girling came along to that as well in his role around economic development, along with officers, and really brought home to me the scale of the opportunity in that space in terms of the work, not just for the Step Fusion project itself, but what we can add around that, both for the community and infrastructure and wider clean energy research. And in the same vein, I also attended the Regional Hydrogen Summit last week, managed by the LEP, where we talked about similar opportunities in that clean and renewable energy space and what we need to do, both as a council and as a wider set of regional stakeholders, in terms of accessing several £billion of government funding for hydrogen research. We, as an area, are really at the heart of a lot of that really positive work and innovation. So really brings home some of the opportunity, actually, and that's been really, really positive. I don't think there's anything else I want to particularly add or build on, Mr. Chairman, given that we've got a number of questions for 10 or 15 minutes to come, so I'll stop there.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. Councillor Barnfather, you would like to second the motion, I believe.
Yeah, formally second the report. Thank you, Vice Chairman.
Thank you very much. And as this is a report to note, we will note it's been received by the Chamber. So thank you very much for that. So we go on to questions to... Hello? Yes? So, no, it's for noting. Yes.
I'm just confused. The one here for noting as well.
We all get confused. So we're now going to questions to the Leader of the Council on the Executive Report. As set out in the Constitution, a maximum of 15 minutes is allowed for questions to the Leader of the Council on the Executive Report, after which any remaining questions will receive a written response. There will be a maximum of 1 supplementary question, which must be from the member who asked the original question. The supplementary question should be on the same matter and should be in the form of a question, not a statement. And there are 6 questions as follows, and we will take question 1 and 2 will be taken together. The first question will be from Councillor Tom Hollis regarding the meeting with the Chancellor of the Exchequer, and the second question, which links into this, will be from Councillor Jim Creamer regarding the meeting with the Chancellor of the Exchequer. So, Councillor Hollis, your question, please.
Thank you, Chairman. And this is a question to Councillor Ben Bradley. In your report, items 25 and 26 discuss a meeting you held with the Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt MP,
Did you discuss with the Chancellor of the Exchequer the real-term cuts in funding to fix our broken roads and pavements, the failure of the government to give local councils a multi-year settlement, and the government's failure to implement a fair funding review that has adversely impacted Nottinghamshire County Council and its residents? Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Hollis. Councillor Bradley. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Councillor Cream. Sorry.
Thank you, Vice Chair. The same paragraphs. When discussing cost of living challenges and business costs in your meeting with the Chancellor, was this part of a wider discussion on the lasting economic impact Nottinghamshire residents have experienced following the previous Chancellor's disastrous mini-budget this time last year?
Thank you, Councillor Creamer. Now, Councillor Bradley.
Thank you, Chairman. Grateful for the questions. Noticed the comments around the noting of the last report, and can I say I recognise the inconsistency in some of those areas, and it's something we discussed at lunchtime and we can reflect on, because I do understand where you're coming from, and we should have one approach for the same thing throughout the meeting. So I totally take that on board. Grateful for the questions, Mr. Chairman. For the interesting conversations with the Chancellor, can confirm that both I and parliamentary colleagues from around both Derbyshire and Nottinghamshire who were in the meeting raised the issues of funding for our highways, a point that was reflected, as I say, by a number of colleagues, and you'll be pleased to hear was the thing when we came to the end of the meeting that the Chancellor chose to reflect on in terms of his takeaways from the conversation that we've had, which I think is a positive thing. We also spoke at length about government finance and about the pressures on our services, aided by the fact that the Minister for Local Government, Lee Rowley, was also in the room in his capacity as a Derbyshire MP. On the two that Nottinghamshire County Council has a voice in that room, and the one and only council in the whole of the country who can have that direct and regular conversation with the Chancellor. It's something I've talked about and something that I think we have benefited from. That can only be a good thing. So I'm sure you're pleased to hear, Councillor Hollis, that those things were raised in that meeting. On Councillor Creamer, on your point, there's a lot of bit of economics, lots of figures that have been often rejected since, actually. People often refer to the economic impact when what actually they mean is the cost or the impact on the Treasury's internal bottom line. The economic impact you refer to is actually really difficult to measure. And I can say confidently that in the months following the budget that you referred to, and in November the budget grew, the economy grew further by 0.15%. So there's your economic impact. I think it's safe to say that yes, the cost of living and the cost to business of things like energy bills, food inflation, and others were very much part of that conversation with the Chancellor. And again, were reflected by a number of colleagues around the room. So you can rest assured that those things.
Councillor Hollis, do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. I think, isn't it the reality that under the Conservatives we've moved from the top of the league table to the bottom when it comes to funding of the roads and pavements? And I'd like to ask the leader, would you agree that with your Conservative colleague, Councillor Richard Jackson, that the Tory government have comprehensively let down this council and its residents by not delivering a fair funding review, caused uncertainty over a lack of multi-year settlement, and its major part in the fact that we have the most potholes in England here in Nottinghamshire? Could you guarantee raising these issues with whoever is the next Chancellor? And do you think this council is best served by having a leader and leadership who are suffering clearly from Stockholm Syndrome? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Councillor Bradley, if you answer Councillor Hollis, and then we'll come to Councillor.
Incredibly grateful that you're always able to bring humour to these meetings, Tom. Have we moved from top to bottom on roads? No, we haven't. There's absolutely no evidence for that whatsoever. The stats you referred to about argue from the same stats that we are the most proactive in the country in terms of repairing our roads. Now, I don't seek to argue that, because we all know that statistics can be made to read whatever you like, but it certainly isn't. Anywhere else on the comments attributed to Councillor Jackson regarding multi-year settlements? I don't think that was quite how he would have put it. If I'm honest, I don't recollect those exact words. But we're all frustrated, I think, across not just this council, but across the kind of family of local government at the short-term settlements that we've had. very difficult to plan ahead. So that's not unreasonable. And we argue every time there is an autumn statement in a budget that we want to move to multi-year settlements. I hope that will happen. But where we have had settlements around local government finance in recent years, I think the figure for last year and local government settlement last year was a 9% increase in core spending power for local government from memory. So it's not all bad news. And in some ways, the benefit of that 1 year settlement is those things are able to move up and down. And where we have particular challenges, we can lobby for more money in order to tackle those challenges. Whereas if that were a fixed multi-year settlement, that wouldn't be the case. The last time we had a fixed long-term settlement, it was to say that your government grant was going to go from here to here over the next 5 years and manage it. So sometimes it's a case of be careful what you wish for. Actually, in recent years, certainly since I've been a councillor, local government budget overall and the grant we've received from government has gone up consistently every year. Not enough to meet demand, and that's reflected across our wider society because demand for everything is increasingly complex and difficult. But yes, you can rest assured those things are consistently raised and will, for as long as I am lucky enough to be able to go to Parliament and to raise those questions, I'll continue to do that.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. And Councillor Creamer, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, Vice Chair. First, thank you for your answer and mentioning the actual disastrous budget last year. And along with that, the supplementary question is last September, Liz Truss and the Chancellor crashed the economy, added millions to mortgage payments across the country and county. This September in the Nottingham Post, you were quoted saying, quote, "I have a lot of respect for Liz Truss and suggesting she had a lot of good ideas," end quote. I'm just wondering which of Liz Truss's supposedly good ideas do you feel have best helped the residents in Nottinghamshire currently struggling to pay their mortgages and feed their families?
Councillor Bradley.
I very much enjoy your selective quoting, Councillor Creamer, because obviously the next bit in that quote that you all have read in the newspaper was, "But she managed it really badly," which you managed to knock off the end there. And slightly misconstrue what I said. I'll take that as being an inadvertent omission. But it is always incredible to hear this phrase, and it is political phrase, around crash the economy, because I've already described that she managed to crash it upwards by 0.55% in terms of economic growth in the following months. So let's not pretend that quotes from politicians are the same as a credible economic argument. They are not. For her part, and she's continued actually since being Prime Minister, to raise all sorts of ideas and all sorts of disruption in some ways to the status quo in our financial system, in government. And actually, I think it's a good and healthy thing that somebody's willing to come forward with good and different and positive ideas. I've already and been very public in saying that her time in Number 10 was not managed very well. She didn't deliver what she wanted to deliver, and she tried to do too much too quickly. And I'm very much on the record of saying that. That doesn't mean that everything she tried to do was wrong. And we continue to have those debates, and we continue to hold those checks and balances and feed those things in to the Treasury. But you can rest assured, as I've said again, that all of those cost of living challenges are raised regularly with the Chancellor, with other people that I met. I also met with policy advisors in Number 10 this week to talk particularly about economic challenges around our towns, relevant to many of us around the county. And as I say, as long as I am there and as long as I'm able to do that, I'll continue to raise those concerns on behalf of the Council as well as my constituents.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bradley. Right, we move on to our next question, which is from Councillor Sybil Fielding, and this is concerning Gateford School. So, Councillor Fielding.
I welcome the news that the first phase of the Gateford School is finally due to be completed in September next year. As the local member who has campaigned for this school to be built, does the leader share my disappointment that the school is set to be delivered 1 year later than initially indicated and to only 2/3 of the eventual capacity?
Councillor Bradley.
Thank you, Councillor Fielding, for the question. As you know, we plan school places on the basis of predicted need in those places at in any given time in any given area. And based on the information we have about population growth or otherwise and the prospect of increases in housing is obviously something that's factored into that, a very long-term factor. New housing development in particular is an incredibly long-term thing. It has to be a decade or more from first inception of an idea that homes might be built or conversations about Section 106 agreements and that estate being completed. And so the environment changes, assumptions on populations change because they are assumptions at the beginning. We have to make our best estimate of what that will look like, and demographics change, and therefore the policies and output has to change. But at Gateford in particular, actually, we're building a school that is appropriately sized and timed to meet the need. The school is exactly the size that we always said and requested that it would be. It was always going to be a one-form entry school. So the suggestion it's not as advertised, and they said not as it will be, maybe, I guess, depending on the need, but it is always the size that we always wanted it to be from the off. The additional scope you refer to has always been in the form of potential extra capacity if needed, and it's not clear yet whether there will be a need for those spaces in the future. If it is, then the relevant plans are in place for us to be able to do that. But fundamentally, I'm really pleased that we're able to open another primary school as part of our huge investment in schools. I know councillors were at the opening, I think, of East Leek School again very recently, so I was really pleased to be able to go with councillors Taylor and Girling to kind of put the first spade in the ground. Probably didn't do that much work when we were there, did we, in terms of digging, but a great event nonetheless, and a part, as I've already mentioned in the report, of a huge programme of investment in our schools, both expansion of our secondary places and a £9 million council programme of investment in existing school buildings to make sure that we're doing everything we can to support both school places and the quality of school buildings in the county.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. Councillor Fielding, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chairman. As the leader knows, I've raised this issue several times in this chamber. The Parents and Workshop have been asking for this school now, and in fact since 2015, when the Section 106 agreement was signed with Bassett District Council. Paragraph 8 of a report to the Policy Committee, 16th of September 2020 said, and I quote, "There is some uncertainty as to when the new school will be required. However, it is anticipated that construction will start in 2022 with a 52-week build period." Well, the school was required and the construction, of course, did not start in 2022, hence the delay and the families of Workshop are now experiencing. My question to the leader is, in 2015, the school was set to cost £3 million. In 2020, the report said there was a significant risk that the construction cost of this school would now exceed £4 million. How much more than £1 million over budget does the leader expect the school build to cost by the time it's eventually finished?
Councillor Bradley.
Grateful for the question. I'm not sure the answer is something you would expect me to know about with advance notice in terms of specific figures, because I haven't had that question in advance from you, Councillor Fielding. But as far as I understand, the Section 106 agreement was index linked in terms of the amount of money available, and so if the cost goes up, the Section 106 agreement to pay for it will also go up, but it shouldn't be additional cost to the council. But I think the important factor, and it's been raised already by Councillor Payne in the debate today, it's going to happen in my own constituency and in Mansfield around future developments as well, and around the county, is that when you plan for things over the long term, when you make assumptions, you make projections around need and population, that isn't always still the case 10 years later. And we have to use the funding that is available to us to deliver on the need. Speak about my own constituency and the Lyndhurst development. We planned, I think the Section 106 there was signed a decade ago from memory, long time ago. And the kids who needed primary school places a decade ago are 10 years older and they need secondary places now. And that is likely to be the case around the county. We have a declining birth rate around the county in terms of pupil numbers entering into primary schools every year. The last few years, that number has fallen. So it would be mad to just build, as you seem to be suggesting, build the full 2.5 form entry, knowing that there isn't actually a pupil numbers or place planning need for us to build that. Because what we're increasingly seeing on the other end of the scale is small primary schools with reducing numbers that then become financially unsustainable because there aren't enough kids to actually fill those schools. Where we do have a challenge is in secondary places, increasingly around the county. And so actually what we need to do is ensure we make the best use of that Section 106 money to fulfil the challenge that is actually there and that the data tells us is actually there. Where we don't have a place planning problem around primary schools, we do increasingly have one around secondary, because that bulge that existed and created that need for places in primary is now older and is now moving into the secondary population. We have to make sure we manage that. And it's easy to stand here and say, you promised 10 years ago that you would do X, didn't, I wasn't here. But at the same time, we also have to accept that these are projections of numbers, these are projections of need, and it would be remiss of us as a council to not make up-to-date assumptions and figures and move forward as we do when we have the actual figures to deliver what the residents actually need in those communities. And I'm sure members opposite would expect nothing different.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. I was just going to say we've hit our 15 minutes time now, so thank you for that. And that means we've had the 15 minutes allocated for questions to the leader. There were remaining questions. They will receive written answers. So thank you. This means now we move on to questions to the leader and also cabinet members and committee chairmen. And as set out in the Constitution, we have 45 minutes remaining. So we have 45 minutes remaining for questions to the leader, cabinet members and committee chairmen, after which any remaining questions will receive a written response. There will be a maximum of one supplementary question, which must be from the member who asked the original question. The supplementary question should be on the same matter and should be in the form of a question, not a statement. And we have 8 questions, hopefully, to get through in the next 45 minutes. And the first one is from Councillor Penny Gowland, and this is about the impact of changes to carbon reduction commitments on business investment. And Councillor Ben Bradley MP will reply. So, Councillor Gowland.
Thank you. The Prime Minister has recently decided to water down the UK's carbon reduction commitments by pushing back on the ban on buying new petrol and diesel cars to 2035. Does the leader agree that this will have a negative impact upon business investment here in Nottinghamshire, particularly in the renewable energy sectors such as West Burton and hydrogen plants at Radcliffe-on-Trent, which the council has stated are necessary to delivering the stated ambition for green growth in the county? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gowland and Councillor Bradley.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you generally, Councillor Gowland, for the question. There seems to be a real desire to give me a full hour to say whatever I like today, which I'm very grateful for. I'm grateful for the work we're doing in this space, actually. I'm looking forward to some of the questions that are coming forward. But generally, you won't be surprised to hear, Councillor Gowland, that my answer is no, I don't agree. I was absolutely delighted with the Prime Minister's change in approach. It's something I've been calling for over several years. So no, I don't think it will have a negative impact at all. In fact, I think the change in emphasis is really good news for Nottinghamshire. First, you mentioned the ban on petrol and diesel cars specifically, so let's touch on that one first. It's great news for the security of jobs and investment in the automotive industry in our area. We have one major car manufacturer nearby, that's Toyota, at Burniston, at Derby, who welcomed the change and welcomed the recognition that the future of car manufacturing and fuels isn't just electric, but it's broader than that. It's a whole range of potential options. I mentioned earlier that I was at the Hydrogen Summit at Toyota just last week as one example. Next closest to here and to our constituents, Jaguar Land Rover, backs the Prime Minister and says it's a pragmatic approach in line with what the rest of the world is doing. So as a region, the East Midlands, the whole Midlands in fact, the sector is supportive of the move. One senior auto industry executive was quoted in Financial Times as saying, some people will be cross in public, but the general view will be a collective sigh of relief from the industry. What needs to be recognised is that these are private businesses, right? And if they've made business plans to shift to fully electric vehicles by 2030, there's absolutely nothing stopping them from doing that. Fair play to them if they want to do that. Nissan, for example, have said they still plan to do it by 2030. Good for them. The Prime Minister's not telling them not to, or that they can't. It shouldn't be government's place, quite frankly, to tell private businesses what they can and can't make anyway, if I'm totally honest. But if they think there's a strong market there for electric vehicles and that's the way forward, then they can build and sell them, regardless of this announcement. What it has done is given a little bit more flexibility to the sector and recognised, as Toyota have said, that electric is not the only route forward in terms of the UK exploring clean fuels. Most importantly, it's brought our deadline in line with most of the rest of the world who have already set 2035 as their aim, or moved to 2035 before we did. And that's really important, not least for jobs in Derby, 2,500 people employed at the Toyota Burniston site, because if the market disappears for petrol and diesel cars in the UK in 2030, but is still active everywhere else in the world until 2035, then guess what? Manufacturers will go and make petrol and diesel cars everywhere else rather than here, and those jobs will be lost and our economy will suffer as a result. So quite the opposite, Councillor Gowland, to your suggestion. I think this announcement is really good news for the security of 2,500 jobs in our region and for Toyota's continued commitment and investment in creating more jobs and growth through that hydrogen research as well as other things. The other key bit, the second part of your question regarding clean and renewable energy, you're right that the County Council said this is important. It's what we want to see in terms of that growth of green jobs, of clean energy in this and other sectors. like, for example, hydrogen at Toyota at Chinook in Nottingham and High Marnham. But not just hydrogen. There's a region we're into modular nuclear at Rolls-Royce. We're into fusion energy at West Burton. We're into clean fuels, again, Rolls-Royce, Toyota, East Midlands Airport, involved in that work. Aviation fuel in particular can make a huge difference, and a ton of research and expertise at the University of Nottingham in particular, with further expansion of the skills and training that's needed in that space, and more investment coming our way. I think the Prime Minister's announcement refocusing the national energy onto this stuff too, and there's a huge amount of national focus on fusion and hydrogen in particular that benefits our county in a big way. He's not backed away from any of that, and in fact he's embraced it even more in what he said, that Britain will focus on these things, on clean growth, on investment that creates jobs, boosts skills, focuses on tech and innovation to tackle these climate challenges, and not to get stuck on arbitrary deadlines on banning stuff like petrol cars that would cause prices on the second-hand market to rise and price people out of their ability to drive, on charging people more through Labour's ULEZ schemes or workplace parking levies, on forcing people to buy new boilers they can't afford. Many of my constituents still get coal allowance, never mind heat pumps, Chairman. They're struggling to get by. And so they have been concerned that government is expecting them to buy a new car, to buy a new boiler, fit a new heat pump, and all the rest when they can't afford it. And that's been a huge cause of stress that crosses my desk on a regular basis. They've had that pressure lifted, and all the evidence suggests that people are very happy with the Prime Minister's announcement. Since last week, the gap between Labour and Conservatives reduced by 8 points in the polls in the wake of those announcements. And it shows, I think, that the public overwhelmingly agree with what the Prime Minister has said, and so do I.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. Councillor Gowland, do you have a supplement?
Thank you. As you know, the Director of Ford didn't agree. The Director of E.ON didn't agree. I'm sure the Director of Trent Valley Vehicle Charging and all the small SMEs who've got themselves tooled up for 2030 don't agree. Industry needs stable targets, not things vacillating like this. I'm interested to see he sides with the unelected, in my opinion, Prime Minister and former Prime Minister Liz Truss, who exploded the cost of living, even if she didn't crash the economy, apparently, on instead of business climate experts and residents of Nottinghamshire who need these jobs and investment in EVs now. Will he agree with the fact that the lifetime cost of EV cars, well, I agree the upfront cost, the lifetime cost of EV cars is cheaper than the lifetime cost of petrol?
I'm not sure that the cheaper lifetime cost of an EV car is the barrier to people who can't afford to shell out 25 grand to buy a new one, if I'm totally honest. But I do think there is more to it than this. If it is the case that electric vehicles are going to be the way forward, are going to be the way that we move in terms of our automotive industry, and it isn't the case, as I've already argued, but I think it is, but if you think it isn't the case that there is a wider range of opportunities here, hydrogen and others, if there is a market for electric vehicles, then those companies need have no concern whatsoever about their plans to install electric infrastructure, because there is a market for it and they will sell and they will be able to install it. And there is still money behind the rollout of EV charging infrastructure. I've been talking to Councillor Girling about EV infrastructure in our county just in the last few weeks. So none of that has changed. What has changed is the arbitrary target that was 5 years earlier than everybody else's that would have led to manufacturing in this country, and not least just this country, our county, because people like Toyota recognise there are different views around the country, and you can dig very deep into all the various reasons around that, different sectors, different markets. In the case of Ford, massively declining sales in the UK already. That is more of a challenge for them. But for employers here around our county where our constituents work, they've welcomed this, they've seen it as good news. I personally think that the change and our shift to net zero will be driven by trying to create options for people that are affordable and viable and sustainable, rather than trying to ban stuff and force people to buy things that they cannot afford to buy. I'm pleased that the Prime Minister's made that change, and as I said, totally support what he's done.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. Just a gentle reminder, there is a chairman here who is supposed to call the speakers to speak before they speak. So, but anyway, lessons learned as we go.
He's the novice.
Yes, so it's the enthusiasm, that's what it is. So thank you for that. Our next question is from Councillor Tom Smith, and this is regarding the 141 bus service, and Councillor Neil Clark MBE to reply. So, Councillor Smith, busy day for you.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Clark, as you are aware, our announcement that we have secured the future of the 141 bus service was major news for communities along this lengthy bus route, particularly for my communities in Rainworth and Blidworth. Would you be able to detail what support Nottinghamshire County Council has given to secure the future of this bus service.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. Thank you. This item was actually also detailed in the leader's executive report as well, but I'm really pleased that Nottinghamshire County Council has been able to support the continuation of the 141 bus service. This route is so very important to many communities throughout the centre of Nottinghamshire. The bus provides essential links to other public transport options and enables residents to access a range of commercial and recreational uses. That's why we awarded a contract to Stagecoach to operate the full service in September 2022, following with the withdrawal of the previous operator. Since then, the service has seen increased passenger levels and greater reliability, and I must commend Stagecoach for all the work they have done, working hard to increase the reliability so that those passenger levels can increase. And I'm therefore delighted to report that in partnership with Stagecoach, we have now extended the 141 service contract. The extended contract reduces the cost to this authority of subsidising the route with that increased patronage, with Stagecoach taking a greater commercial stake in the future operation and growth of the service. They are keen to improve the service further, for example, by increasing the range of ticketing options available to passengers. The County Council will subsidise the route with £450,000 per annum sourced from bus support grants and its local bus support budget. Costs are expected to reduce in the future as passenger growth and income increases. But in terms of support right now, this represents a massive commitment by this authority, ensuring that we are doing our best to provide excellent bus services for our communities. Many other local authorities do not provide financial support to protect services like the 141, and it is a mark of this administration's commitment to promoting public transport that we will set money aside for this purpose. Thank you, Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Smith, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Clark, for your response. Obviously, as I've said many times before, and I will no doubt say many times again, this is enormously positive news. Councillor Clark, would you be able to confirm that we will continue to work with Stagecoach and monitor the bus service and its usage going forward?
Thank you, Vice Chairman. Well, absolutely, certainly, yes. I think, as I indicated in my original response, Stagecoach has been very proactive and enthusiastic, and our officers have worked very well together with Stagecoach in promoting and increasing that service. So I'm absolutely enthusiastic that Stagecoach will continue to do that extra work to make sure that service continues. And I have to say, with the extra patronage, we need to make sure that everybody works hard together to really promote the service, to increase those passenger levels, to make sure that the service is sustained for the future.
Thank you very much. We go on to our next question, which is from Councillor Steve Carr, and this concerns proposals for the member working group, and Councillor Owen will reply.
Thank you, Chair. That last question was such a plant. I'm surprised the portfolio didn't bring his baby bio with him, but there we go. Question to the Chairman of the Governance and Ethics Committee. The minutes of the full council meeting on the 31st of March 2022, page 6, item 7 states that the members' working group reporting to Governance and Ethics Committee where appropriate, as appropriate, be authorised to maintain an overview of the operation of the new arrangements during the first year of the executive arrangements and to make any suggested proposals for change to the Governance and Ethics Committee for recommendation to full council. Proposals from the members' working group were not discussed at Governance and Ethics Committee, but went straight to full council. Why?
Thank you, Councillor Carr and Councillor Owen, please.
Thank you, Vice Chairman, and can I thank Councillor Carr for his question. The minutes of the full council meeting held on the 31st of March 2022 are written and recorded as it describes. The members' working group did indeed maintain an overview of the operation of the new arrangements during the first year of executive arrangements. I appreciate, however, that independent alliance members might not be aware of what was discussed at that working group meetings in question because they weren't present. Even though all groups and the non-aligned member of council were invited to have representation on this working group. The working group over the last 12 months examined the new executive arrangements in considerable detail, focusing especially on council procedure rules, scrutiny review, and financial thresholds on key decisions. Regarding council procedure rules, the members' working group considered and endorsed several changes. These were designed to improve the smooth running of the full council meeting, to update and clarify current arrangements and practices, and to provide greater equity between the groups. The terms of reference for Governance and Ethics Committee refer to oversight of the Constitution and making recommendations to full council. However, this is always subject to the overriding authority of full council as the sovereign body. It is not a requirement or prerequisite for this to happen before full council exercises its authority to make changes to the Constitution. The minutes of the full council from the 31st of March state that the members' working group reporting to Governance and Ethics Committee as appropriate be authorised to maintain an overview of the operation of the new arrangements. As appropriate are obviously important words in that minute. In practical terms, the reason it was deemed appropriate to take these proposals from the working group directly to full council was because it seemed sensible and fair to give every member the opportunity to read, comment, and vote on changes to procedures which would affect all of us. As Governance and Ethics Committee Chairman, I was perfectly comfortable with this approach. Taking the working group's proposals to Governance and Ethics Committee first would only have delayed the process, bearing in mind all Governance and Ethics Committee members are full council members anyway. I understand why members would be concerned if important proposals and decisions on the future conduct of full council meetings had been debated and finally approved only by a restricted group of members, but that was not the case here. On the contrary, we simply expedited the process by which all members would have the opportunity to comment and vote on these proposals, ensuring that the decision we took was both fair and transparent. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Owen, for a very detailed reply. Councillor Carr, I'm assuming you will have a supplementary. Would you like to place your
Well, what a load of nonsense. Sorry, but it's absolute load of nonsense, and he knows it. I don't care if you were comfortable with it, Mr. Councillor Owen. What happened was wrong. So basically what you're saying is, and this is the question, the words, and to make any suggested proposals for change to the Governance and Ethics Committee for recommendation to full council wasn't met, and you were comfortable with that. How many other resolutions before full council, as Chairman of Governance and Ethics, will you be comfortable in expediting
because you knew very well that it would get through and you wanted to get it through quickly. Thank you.
Councillor.
Well, I'm not really clear what the question was about there, to be perfectly honest, Chairman. We have given an opportunity for all members of this council to look at proposals and recommendations for improving the workings of this council. Now, why wouldn't we want to do that? Why would we want to go from a working group to another committee to discuss it, and then, having discussed it again, and no doubt come to the same conclusions, because, as I pointed out, the working group was a cross-party working group. We come to the same conclusions at the Governance and Ethics Committee, and then we bring it to Council for a third time to discuss in order to make the final resolutions. That would be a nonsense. Now, that might well be the way other groups work in this council, but it's not the way we as an efficient administration are prepared to work. And I'm disappointed in the stupidity of this question, quite frankly.
Point of clarification. Point of clarification. Is the Governance and Ethics Chairman, who should know better, calling me stupid? And secondly, the reason why it should have gone to Governance and Ethics is because it says so in a resolution passed by the sovereign authority of this council, and that is this full council, and you ignored it. You were happy to ignore it. You should resign. Resign, Councillor Owen.
Councillor Carr.
The next phase in this will be for him to walk out in high dudgeon and complain bitterly and put in a complaint.
I was Councillor.
Is this a point of clarification?
Councillor Clark, you behave, be quiet, heard. Councillor Owen. Yes, well I have and I will.
As I said, Chairman, I couldn't see the point in this question because, quite frankly, the whole of the council has had the opportunity to discuss and debate the proposed changes. Why do you want to, how many times do you want to keep discussing and debating these proposed changes? The council is the sovereign body. The council made its decision. The council asked for things to be looked at as appropriate, and we looked at them as appropriate, and it was appropriate to bring them direct to this council for final ratification, which I did last month. I can't be any more open and transparent and honest.
Right. Thank you for your no, Councillor Carr. Councillor Carr. Remember, you addressed the chairman, and you have made a point. We will we'll move on. So our next, because you're eating into question time, and we love questions. So our next question is from Councillor Sam Smith, and this is concerning RAC in Nottinghamshire schools, and Councillor Girling will reply.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. There's been a lot of coverage in the media over the last few weeks about school buildings that were affected by RAC. Could the Cabinet Member for Asset Management please give some reassurance and explain how this matter has been managed and dealt with across Nottinghamshire?
Thank you, Councillor Smith, and Councillor Girling to reply. Yeah, very good, Councillor Girling.
Yeah,
well
thank
done.
you.
I've just answered the question.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Smith. I really welcome this because we know that people will be concerned about this in Nottinghamshire. This is not about the theatre of this building here, of this place here. It's about reassuring people out there. And so this is why I welcome this as a question. In 2019, the government issued an alert regarding RAC planks, setting out concerns of the specific building material. They also provided a date range within which it was thought this construction type was used. In response, Nottinghamshire County Council commissioned ARC Partnership to undertake a review of all council-maintained properties and maintained schools constructed during the date range in question, which was 1960 to 1980. Desktop investigations allowed the presence of RAC to be ruled out across most council buildings with visits required to a handful of sites to confirm that no rack was present. More recent guidance revised the dates from the rack planks were used in construction, now covering the period 1930 to 1980. In response to this, Arc Partnership were further instructed to review buildings built between 1930 and 1960, the period not previously considered. Arc have completed the desktop assessment and have undertaken physical inspections of any sites deemed necessary, and as this task now nears completion again, no rack has been found. The council's estate managed and maintained by a combination of council officers and Arc Partnership using commissioned contractors as necessary. The building stock is widely understood with technical experts and contractors active across the estate on a daily basis undertaking projects and maintenance work. So the monitoring of our sites for emerging risks of this or any other part of our standard approach. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Girling. And Councillor Smith, do you have no supplementary? Okay, thank you very much. So we move on to our next question, which is from Councillor Michelle Welsh about the survey work on school buildings, and Councillor Ben Bradley to reply. So Councillor Welsh, please.
In relation to the Council's recent statement on RAC in schools published on the 1st of September 2023, since becoming leader of this Council in 2021, when were you first made aware of the previous survey work undertaken by this Council alongside the DFE, which would have helped identify serious building concerns in maintained schools and academies such as RAC?
Thank you, and Councillor Bradley.
I waited this time.
Well,
see how I learn quickly, Mr. Chairman. Good, thank you, Michelle. As Councillor Girling's already said, the work to investigate and tackle RAC in school buildings in Nottinghamshire began on DFE advice back in 2018-19. No RAC was identified in maintained schools, which are the ones within our responsibility. So there's been no need for me, to be honest, up until the point of the national guidance changing in the summer, to really get involved in this. Although I can assure you that Councillor Taylor, I know, was sending emails backwards and forwards in the spring of this year in advance of that national conversation, trying to seek assurances within our own remit that we had tackled this to the best of our ability. When the guidance did change, I was informed myself, had conversations with officers, and it was informed that there were no issues within our maintained schools, and that we've had this in hand in effect since 2019 when that guidance was first issued. Forgive me, and I don't mean this to be political at all, I'm a little bit confused by the second part of your question, and I mean this generally in terms of a question back to you, perhaps for the supplementary. You ask when I found out about the work, accepting that it happened, but then suggest the work could have made a difference, but obviously it did happen, and there was no RAC, so I'm a little bit confused about what you're asking. I'll just ask you in the supplementary to clarify that, and I can come back to you.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. And Councillor Welsh, do you have a supplementary?
Thank you. I perhaps refer to the fact that, I don't know if this is what you're saying or not saying, to be honest, because you speak very fast, Ben, I'm not going to lie. Are you suggesting that it shouldn't be with regards to maintained schools as well as academies? Is that what you're getting confused about? Because I don't understand what's so confusing about the question. Yeah. Okay, so that's your answer. So I wasn't to know that when you did the question. Okay, so your supplementary question is: in the House of Commons on the 6th of September, you said that our council, quote, have been doing survey work with the DFE since 2018 to 19, so it's been ongoing for a long time, and that the council had very good data and information to be able to tackle the situation quickly. So this means that since day one of taking on the role as leader of this council, you had knowledge of the RAC in a Nottinghamshire school, whether it's an academy or not. So was this at your fingertips? But when the safety notice was published last year on RAC, you did nothing with that information until it became a national scandal. Are you relieved your inaction didn't result in serious harm?
That's a very right. I think, Councillor Brennan, you've heard the question, but
I think I get it.
Yes, you get it. So
I think the premise of Councillor Welsh's question is she's trying to suggest that the fact that there was one academy school within Nottinghamshire that had RAC in the building is somehow my fault. which I imagine I'll get used to over the course of the next 6 months. That seems to be the nature of the question as it appeared to me. Correct me if I'm wrong. But no, it is a short answer. So we have been doing that survey work on our maintained schools, not just our schools, but our wider estate, our public buildings. Since that time, since the RAC guidance said that we should look at that, seek to identify and mitigate at that time and make sure that we were comfortable with the scenario. We did that in our maintained schools, but we're not responsible for the maintenance of academy school buildings. That's for academies and academy trusts to do. We work very closely with our schools, as you know, and where there are opportunities for us to work in partnership and support them in delivering on those responsibilities, we do. But ultimately, it is academies and academy trusts themselves who are responsible for their own buildings. That's the nature, complicated though it may be, of the way that the school estate in Britain is managed. Upon learning of the situation in the school in Muscombe, Holy Trinity, from memory, the whole public sector family kind of gathered around that school and aimed to support them. I spoke with developers, I spoke with Newark and Sherwood Council, who were gracious enough to offer some of their land in order to be able to mitigate. And within a matter of a couple of days, plans were in place to make sure that the school could remain open. And rather than closing altogether, actually, it was a graduated opening where kids were allowed back in phases in order to be able to manage it effectively. I think from our perspective as a council, we had done everything we could possibly do related to the national guidance, up until the point where the guidance changed. And when the guidance changed, we were in the fortunate position that from our point of view, as maintained schools that we are responsible for, there was no issue. Didn't affect us, but we aimed to support the one academy trust in our county where that was an issue. So in answer to the question, did you know about this a year ago and do nothing? No, because from a county council and maintained schools perspective, there wasn't a problem to know about. When we were made aware of the problem at Holy Trinity, we aimed to support them, and I think that was managed and tackled not just by us, but by the whole range of partners involved in tackling that very well and very effectively. When you consider actually the scale of the national conversation about this, which was quite incredible off the back of a list of schools that could be affected that was published, a couple of hundred schools on a list that could be affected. We spent a week talking about how this was a national crisis, opposition members in Parliament talking about how school buildings were falling on children's heads, incredibly frustratingly because that has never happened. Actually, the grand total of school actual closures in the entirety of England as a result of RAC was 4 in 24,000 schools. So I think we need to put a little bit of context around some of the numbers and some of the conversation in all of this. 50 of those schools affected, not closed, but affected. Over half of those total UK number were all in Essex. It was a really localised challenge, actually, in many ways. From a Nottinghamshire perspective, we managed it as well as we could. We used the information that we had and the guidance that we had to do everything that we could. And where it was outside of our gift, we still engaged with partners to try and help them to tackle it. I'm very pleased with the way that was done.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley, and that's an important subject, and we've had clear questions and answers on that. We move on to our next question, question number 6, which is from Councillor Anne Callaghan, BEM, concerning the review of safeguarding practices in response to events at Harlow Academy. And again, Councillor Ben Bradley will reply. So, Councillor Callaghan.
Thank you. On the 8th of June 2023, the Nottinghamshire Safeguarding Children Partnership published a review of safeguarding practice in response to events at Harlow Academy. Last week, in interviews with parents of children who went to Harlow Academy, the BBC reported that their children were left traumatised by the abuse they had experienced. How confident is the leader in the Nottinghamshire Safeguarding Children Partnership in overseeing the changes recommended by this review?
Thank you, and Councillor Bradley.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Callaghan, for the question. Short answer is very, but I'm sure you probably want more from me than that. I'm grateful that everyone wants to ask me a question today, but as the Safeguarding Partnership falls under Councillor Taylor's remit, I've asked her to answer this on my behalf, if that's okay.
So, Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Callaghan, for the question, and thank you, Leader, I think. The Nottinghamshire Safeguarding Children Partnership, which is a partnership of the local authority, police and the Integrated Care Board, chose to commission an independent author to write a report examining lessons to be learned from the serious issues at Harlow Academy. This was not a report that had to be produced under any guidance or legislation, but the partnership felt strongly that there were areas that needed investigation. Parents and carers of children at the former Harlow Academy were directly involved with the independent author in the writing of the report, as reflected in the report itself. The report did not find that failings in the local authority or the Safeguarding Partnership were directly responsible for the issues at Harlow Academy, but there are lessons about how such concerns can be identified and acted on in a more timely way. Many of the recommendations extend beyond the partnership and indeed beyond Nottinghamshire, and the independent scrutineer for the partnership, Dr. Mark Peel, is corresponding with both Ofsted and the Department for Education to monitor their response to this report. Those recommendations that are directly for the partnership are subject to an action plan, and progress will be actively monitored through the Safeguarding Assurance and Improvement Group, on which I and Councillor Anderson both sit. Given that approach, I am confident the partnership will deliver on the independent author's recommendations. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. And Councillor Callaghan, do you have a supplementary for either? Well, for Councillor Taylor, who may well delegate. Well, I'll ask your question.
Well, I'm asking the leader. I'm not asking him to delegate. Right. The Derby and Derbyshire Safeguarding Children Partnership is overseen by a Chief Officer Group, which includes both Cabinet members for children and young people from Derby City Council and Derby County Council. The Nottinghamshire Safeguarding Children Partnership is overseen by a Strategic Leadership Group, which does not include this council's cabinet member for children and families.
Question we need, please, not so much a statement.
It is a question. Right, hang on a minute. So my question is, as leader, why are you allowing our cabinet member take a back seat when it comes to overseeing the safeguarding of children in Nottinghamshire that definitely happened at Harlow Academy under Notts County Council?
Thank you, Councillor Callaghan, and Councillor Bradley will reply to that for you.
Thank you, Chairman. I think I just want to point out the slight contradiction. Under Notts County Council at the Harlow Academy is slightly contradictory in the sense that we don't run academies. And I think that's quite important to recognise in the context of this conversation. We, of course, have a role in safeguarding children. We, of course, have a role in supporting and managing people to meet those obligations. And Councillor Taylor, more than anyone, takes that incredibly seriously. I have no sense that she takes a back seat whatsoever. If she were uncomfortable with the nature and the structure of our safeguarding partnership, I'm sure that she would let me know that. But I have ultimate confidence in her work. I think we have to deal with the role and the remit that we have as a council, which is complicated by the fact that this is an academy school and not a maintained school. But I have every confidence, as I've said, that it works and functions in a way that Councillor Taylor is satisfied with. And if that were not the case, she would raise with me and we would seek to make changes. I'd encourage you, I know you've asked me this question, so I won't ask Tracy to jump in, but I encourage you to have that conversation with her and perhaps explore the reasons for that and the reasons for Tracy's confidence that she's just described, and perhaps we can take that away behind the scenes and discuss it.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley, and I hope that's helped Councillor Callaghan. Right, we have 5 minutes left, and our next question for questions. So our next question is from Councillor Pringle, and this is regarding industrial action at Veolia, and Councillor Ben Bradley to reply again. So, Councillor Pringle.
Thank you, Chairman. Be quick. I'm sure you've read the question. There's currently an ongoing industrial dispute between Nottinghamshire County Council, recycling contractor, Veolia, and the workers at Mansfield Materials Recycling Facility, Ashfield's Wellscroft Close site, and Bassett Law's Claylands Avenue site, represented by the GMB union. The question is, what actions have you taken as council leader to intervene to maintain continuity of the council services? What action are you going to support those involved to resolve the dispute? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pringle. Councillor Bradley.
Thank you, Chairman. You see how I'm waiting every time now? It's good. Good. Thank you, Mike. You asked about my personal involvement, but of course this is a dispute between a third party, a private sector organisation and its staff and a trade union. The County Council isn't involved in that direct conversation. We don't decide things like what a private sector business pays its staff. Our responsibility is to manage our contract with Veolia, and the management of that contract falls under Councillor Clark's brief, and so I'm going to ask him to respond in more detail on my behalf.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. Councillor Clark, could you pick up on that, please?
Thank you, Vice Chairman. You see, I was waiting for your prompts as well, so it's all going well, isn't it? Thank you, Vice Chairman, and thank you, Leader, for diversing the question to me. Yes, of course, I am well aware of the ongoing dispute between the GMB Union and Veolia regarding the reopening of their existing local pay agreement. Whilst this is fundamentally an issue for Veolia and GMB to resolve, the Council, as the Waste Disposal Authority, has been working closely with our partner Borough and District Council Waste Collection Authorities and Veolia to maintain essential curbside collection services for residents throughout any disruption caused by industrial action. Relevant officers have met almost daily to put together a set of operational contingencies with Veolia to minimise the impact on residents and assist waste collection authorities where their own collection staff have been unwilling to cross the GMB picket lines. Indeed, I have been in constant contact with our officers, receiving regular updates about the situation on the ground, sometimes many times a day. In fact, this morning, Mr. Vice Chairman, it was on at least 3, if not 4 occasions, even before this meeting started. Whilst the majority of Veolia sites have been operational during the strike, including all the household recycling centres, I am aware that some collections have been delayed due to the actions of GMB in hindering and in some cases blocking access to facilities. We continue to provide alternative sites to waste collection authorities for the receipt and transfer of waste should they need to use them. Just to be clear again, Mr. Vice Chairman, this dispute is a matter between Veolia and the GMB and not for the County Council to intervene. However, we continue to monitor events and take any action necessary to ensure that our residents receive the best possible waste management service, so we do monitor the actual operations to ensure the smooth running as much as possible of the operation whilst the dispute continues. Thank you, Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Pringle, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, please, Chairman, and I'll direct to both the Leader and to Councillor Clark, MBE, please, if that's okay. And I understand that you're not going to get involved, although I find that difficult because you are the commissioning body when it comes to the contract of that. So I think there's a deeper involvement than just a hands-off, which you raise. But further to my question initially, as well as the industrial action, £5, who was that? Reg, was that you?
Yes.
Yeah, £5, Chairman. £5 to Veolia Strike Fund, as well as the industrial action at Veolia, and the effect on those workers directly. Are you both aware that the Ukrainian Solidarity Campaign will be protesting tomorrow outside of Veolia's headquarters in response to the organisation's continued profitable presence in Putin's Russia? And do either of you want to join me, or hopefully you'll both want to join me, in supporting those Ukrainians who morally condemn the ongoing activities of Veolia in Putin's Russia?
Thank you.
Did you get that? You got it? Yeah, do you want me to repeat the last bit? You got it? Yeah.
Right, thank you, Councillor Pringle. We literally have 1 minute left for questions. It's counting down on the clock. Who is going to reply to this question? Councillor Bradley?
Shall I go
Yes.
first, Chairman? Oh, yeah, I don't know if you're going to allow us to do the us or not. I'll take your guidance on that.
I think, well, see what we've got to say and then how many seconds are left.
Well, from that perspective, I understand the premise, Mike, in terms of we have a contract with Veolia. It is absolutely our responsibility to ensure that the contractual obligations within that partnership are met in terms of ensuring that Veolia is fulfilling the duties that is contractually obliged to deliver. As Councillor Clark has already said, having daily conversations about that between politicians and officers and talking to Veolia about that to make sure that that is the case. What we can't do is intervene in a pay dispute between two third parties, and what we can't do is get involved in things like individual bin collections in individual districts and boroughs where they're employed by district councils in many cases, or picket lines around the GMB. That's not for us to get involved in. What we need to do is ensure that outcomes are delivered. On the points around Ukraine, recognising the time, Mr. Chairman, I wasn't aware, we are now aware, and we'll take that away and consider if there's anything we need to do about it.
Right, thank you. That is time for questions, because we do have to be strict. We've done 61 minutes and 10 seconds. If we were on the radio now, we would have crashed the pips. So we do need to move on. And there was one remaining question, and that will receive a written reply. So thank you for your comments on that. So we move. We move now, please, to item 12, which is notice of motions. Before we move on to this item, though, the chief executive needs to make a comment.
Yes, thank you, members. So we're very conscious that this first motion relates to universal free school meals, and we've got a number of members from across the political spectrum who either sit on governing bodies or boards of multi-academy trusts. The risk of that then opening a discussion about how many we're going to have to declare an interest and therefore leave the room. We've decided to agree a general dispensation that allows all members to take part, remain in the room, take part in the debate, and then vote on the motion. So anyone who was worried that they may or may not need to declare, you don't, because we'll grant you that general dispensation. Okay. Recognising arguments for and against, hopefully you all recognise it's in the interest of the debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Executives. Hopefully we're all happy with that, because I know many of us are governors on different schools. So, motion number 1 is the universal free school meals for primary school children. I call Councillor Francis Purdue-Horan to move the motion. So, Councillor Purdue-Horan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for granting dispensation to all members and clearing that any hesitation up. In moving this motion today, on behalf of myself and my colleagues, can I start by saying that we believe we speak on behalf of the hungry children of Nottinghamshire, which I'll go into. As the motion states, today the Independent Alliance are asking for 3 things. 1, to note the positive impact the provision of free school meals has in improving children's economic, educational and health outcomes throughout life. 2, to investigate providing each pupil in local authority controlled primary schools with a free school meal. The feasibility study would look at the process, cost and how to resource it. 3, that this council will further ask the Department of Education to increase the annual payment to academy schools to extend universal infant free school meals to all primary schools in Nottinghamshire. In starting, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to thank Rachel Walters and her team at the End Child Poverty Coalition. The End Child Poverty Coalition is made up of over 80 organisations, including child welfare groups, social justice groups, faith groups, trade unions and others. We have held a meeting with her about our intentions this afternoon, and she would like this message conveyed to you, which I'm just about to read, which is remarkably valuable. She says, "Our own research shows that there are just over 52,000 children living in poverty in Nottinghamshire. We hear stories, the End Child Poverty Coalition hears stories of children so hungry that they are eating food literally from bins in our schools. And in one extreme example, a child was found to be eating glue. They were so hungry. Providing a hot, nutritious lunch for all pupils takes away the shame and stigma that can be associated with having a free meal. She goes on to say, ensuring all children are well fed at school so that they can concentrate and learn shouldn't be a political issue. We don't charge families for textbooks or PE equipment, things which are vital for their learning and development. Why is food any different? No child in Nottinghamshire should be going hungry at school. We would encourage all councillors in Nottinghamshire to support this motion, which will be a positive step towards eradicating child poverty. That's where she ends. And later on, Mr. Chairman, I'll add another quote in, which was extremely poignant from a head teacher. These are powerful words, Mr. Chairman, from a group who work at the sharp end of campaigning to eradicate child poverty. What we are calling for today is a feasibility study to start immediately, which would look at process, cost, and how to resource it if there is a solution. As stated in the motion, there are two types of schools that would be impacted here: state-run schools and those run by academies. In Nottinghamshire, there are 135 maintained schools and 123 academy schools. Our motion would deal with these in a slightly different way. Our study would look at starting with schools we still have responsibility for, and we would ask that this council use its influence in the corridors of Whitehall to extend universal infant free school meals to all primary schools in Nottinghamshire, including academies. Of course, Mr. Chairman, we would like to go further. We would like to see this extended to all secondary schools, but we have to start somewhere. So who gets universal free school meals at present? All children in receptions year 1 and year 2 automatically get free school meals if they go to a state school, whether their parent or carer gets a qualifying benefit or not. That's a start, but as a head teacher said, this is a tried and tested in infant schools, and it's really unfair that just because you turn 7 and you go into year 3, the option doesn't continue. Children are suddenly up against it, and it makes their transition into the next primary phase that little harder. Children spend 2 years getting fed at school, but then the support just falls off a cliff. Now, it would be churlish to say that there are not challenges with rolling out this policy. Thousands of families may be able to pay, but working with the Child Poverty Action Group, we were able to reveal that over 25,000 children in Nottinghamshire live in poverty but don't qualify for free school meals. To put that into perspective, and just so that we understand the children we want to feed, hungry children could virtually fill the Nottingham Forest City Ground just over the road. Think about that for a second, councillors. This is because the criteria for eligibility is extremely low. If you are on universal credit and your household income is less than £7,400 a year, you don't qualify. Excuse me. It's important, Mr. Chairman, to break this down into boroughs and districts. so we understand the problem in our areas. Across the county, there are thousands of children living in poverty, but not eligible for free school meals. In Ashfield, there are 4,149 children not qualifying. In Bassetlaw, 3,123. 3,869 in Gedling. 4,317 in Mansfield. 3,284 in Newark and Sherwood. And in Leafy Rushcliffe, we have 2,494. This makes 25,360 children across Nottinghamshire, and as I said earlier, enough to fill the city ground. The difference is, however, they won't be enjoying hospitality packages like some people we know. Poverty is growing across this county, Mr. Chairman. The number of pupils known to be eligible for and claiming free school meals in this county is now 26,669. This is the highest since records began and has gone up almost 30% since the start of the pandemic. Yet we now know this is not an accurate figure for measuring poverty. It's merely the tip of a large iceberg.
1 minute left.
1 minute? I thought I started at 20 past. Mr. Chairman, I'll have to speed on then, and I just want to pick up a primary head teacher in the county told us that they have an awful situation where children are turning up begging for food at their breakfast club. Others turn up with no packed lunch, and this leaves the head teacher's catering staff with a heartbreaking decision of turning away children for a hot meal or just simply feeding them. Financially, it's untenable to do that. And a move to universal free school meals would be a massive benefit for so many of our young students. Mr. Chairman, I'll finish there, but please vote for this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Purdue-Horan. Yes, we have 10 minutes for the mover, and we have to be quite strict. So thank you for that. Councillor Darby, I believe you wish to second the motion.
Thank you, Chairman. In seconding this motion today, I can say fighting to eradicate children poverty is, of course, so very close to my heart. Before being a councillor, I knew that child poverty was on a rise due to my involvement with community groups, but can honestly say that I didn't realise the scale of the problem. Since I became a councillor, I've got more involved with groups like Newark Food Club, where I volunteer most Thursdays at the community centre on Beaumont Walk, Newark. We pride ourselves in never turning anyone away who asks for help. It is becoming more and more obvious, however, that we may think about that, as we have never been as busy as what we are now. It's heartbreaking to think to have to do. Everyone knows that the costs have rocketed, including basic food, petrol, utility bills since COVID. The biggest and most important thing we can look at to roll out these free school meals to all primary students. If London, Scotland and Wales can do it, why can't we? We're so pleased that Child Poverty Action Group are backing us, that they are UK's leading charity who fight to eradicate poverty. We are all asking the County Council to do a feasibility study into this, and if successful, we should roll this out as soon as possible. Yes, it will be expensive, but it's a question of choices. If this motion can feed one more child and help one more family, it will be worth it. Our children are suffering, our families are suffering. We need to listen to what the residents are telling us. If we can't deal with this as a council, then what are we here for? This motion comes at a time when it is most urgent. I can't sleep knowing that over 25,000 children are going hungry, and that don't qualify for free school meals. That's 4,317 children in Newark and Sherwood alone. Can you? Come on, let's get the ball rolling today. And if they can do it in London, Scotland and Wales, we can do it here. Please vote for this motion that will make such a positive difference to so many lives. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Darby. Very clear indeed. Right, we now open up for discussion and debate. So far, I have one person or two speakers now indicated to first of all, Councillor Ben Bradley, and then Councillor Lee, and then as we go on, we'll take names as appropriate. So, Councillor Bradley.
Thank you, Chair. You won't be surprised the Conservative group isn't going to support the motion today. I think it identifies a genuine issue, but comes up with totally the wrong answer. We already had a debate in this chamber a few months ago about eligibility for school meals, and we agreed we should do all we can within that framework, and of course we already do, through cost of living grants, holiday activity fund, a whole range of things, to support children who fall through the cracks in our existing benefit system, and to do all that we can to help. That's absolutely right, and I can fully support that. In fact, throughout my time as council leader, I've shifted the whole agenda within our political priorities towards prevention, towards supporting families and communities who need help as a top priority, to ensure taxpayers' money is targeted where it's most needed. This motion asks us to do the opposite. This motion asks us to shift it back the other way and put millions of pounds into offering free meals to people who largely don't need them and don't want them. To everyone. Most families in our communities do not live in the circumstances that have been described. And countless members in an earlier debate called for more money to prioritise youth justice, and yet now ask us to approve between, by our estimate, 13 and 21 million pounds to feed largely people who are already quite happily and readily doing it themselves and are not asking us to do that. The motion particularly highlights London, and of course there is a feasibility study already going on. It's Sadiq Khan in London. It's these examples, Mr. Chairman, that we should investigate, because it's something that sounds like a very worthy cause. Of course it is, but when you actually examine whether it works in practice, it doesn't. First, in London, this is costing £130 million. So much, that's 1 year. So much, so expensive, they've had to do it as a one-off capital cost because they can't afford to budget for it beyond next year. So actually, it will likely be incredibly short term. Of course, it's doing it in an election year, but there's no money for it post-election because it's a huge amount of money. And even at that, it's not fully funded. A report about Lewisham schools has suggested that the schools themselves are still going to have to find £600,000, that's just Lewisham, not London, from their school budgets in order to ensure that the schools have the kitchen staff, the equipment and everything else they would need to actually deliver it. Because of course, normally schools don't cater for all children, they cater for a proportion of children. Others bring their own lunches. So councils in London are now scrabbling to sort all of that equipment. But the only people who are getting help are maintained schools. So academies are going to have to fend for themselves. It's not going to work. It's going to cost schools a fortune. Many simply won't be able to deliver it. And all in order to offer free meals mainly to kids who don't need them and are currently quite happily providing their own. Kids of millionaires, kids of professional footballers, kids of lawyers and politicians will be getting free taxpayer-funded meals. So where is this money coming from? In London, £130 million is coming from ULEZ, of course, isn't it? So the expansion of the ultra-low emissions zone, Sadiq's baby, contested in court by Conservative councils, I should say, has so little public support that 1 in 4 of the new cameras has been destroyed by vandals and protesters in the first few weeks since it was installed. So in order to raise the money for these additional meals, given mainly to children who don't need them, Sadiq is taxing drivers. Not just drivers, but specifically drivers who can't afford ULEZ compliant vehicles. So that's the white van man, the average person going about their daily business, many of whom will be on free school meals, who will be already struggling with costs. He is going to raise taxes on them by £12.50 a day in order to provide £2.65 for rich families to have free meals that they've not asked for. And guess who doesn't pay the ULEZ charge, Mr. Chairman? People who can afford compliant ULEZ vehicles. So rich people don't pay the ULEZ charge. And that's where the socialism comes in. It's brilliant. Sadiq is literally taxing the poor in order to feed the rich. And he's selling it in an election year as a virtuous and positive thing. In the days since he introduced the policy in London, he's taken such a hit in the polls that numbers have even shown the Conservatives winning the London mayoralty. Can you believe it? His numbers have nosedived to that extent because the vast majority of the public don't expect the state to feed their children, don't need the state to feed their children, and actually don't want the state to take their money from them and decide what food their kids are allowed to eat at school. The Conservative way to tackle this, Mr. Chairman, the Conservative approach here would be to give hard-working families back their £12.50, to support them to work and earn a living, to stop charging them to go about their daily lives, and instead let them afford their own lunch and choose how to spend it for themselves, and for the state to target that help at people who actually need it. So Sadiq Khan is not an example I want to follow, Mr. Chairman. The very principle of it is wrong and misguided, and the evidence from London suggests that it won't deliver in practice, and it certainly isn't popular with the public. And I will always, and this
30
council
seconds.
should always, focus their resource on supporting those who are in need. We've talked in this chamber about people who fall through the cracks in our system and the work that we need to do to help the people who genuinely need our help. I will never implement schemes that divert funding away from that to support people who are already managing fine. I will never implement schemes to tax the poor in order to feed the rich, which is exactly what Labour are doing in London, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. I'm sure I heard someone's phone buzz then, but anyway, there we are.
It's my 5-minute alarm.
Yeah. Oh, very. We've quite a few hands have started to go up now. So my next name on the list here is Councillor Lee.
Chairman, thank you. It's really interesting that only, half an hour ago, we were talking about scrutiny of this council, but there's no scrutiny on this motion. How is it going to be paid for? What services are going to be cut to pay for it? We know how the London Mayor is going to pay for it, and that's ULEZ. £12.50 being taken away from vulnerable families that aren't going to be able to feed the kids, and then he's giving it back to them, and then keeping the rest for himself or doing whatever he's doing with it. I don't actually know what he's going to do with the rest, to be fair. But let's be honest, if they really, really, really wanted this motion to be approved or to be pushed through, they would have a financial statement on how it was going to be paid for, how it was going to be brought forward, and how it was going to be done. And we don't have that. We literally have a paste and copy of what London is doing and how they've done it. And London is completely different to Nottingham. We aren't London. We didn't opt in for a combined authority. We are representing our residents, and we need to work for our residents. And the London model doesn't work in Nottinghamshire. If you want a London model, move to London, pay the ULEZ charges, because we don't want it here. The residents have been quite clear that we don't want ULEZ here, and I'm sure during the... Excuse me, I'm talking. You've got your time slot. Thank you very much. The people will have a chance to have their say, I'm sure, during the mayor elections, if they want ULEZ or not. But going back to what we are actually debating is, if you want to put this through, let's see your finances, let's see how you're going to pay for it, and then let's have a proper discussion on it.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. And please remember, try not to talk over each other, because it doesn't do anyone any favours. So it doesn't look good either. So, Councillor Hollis, please.
Thank you, Chairman. And possibly I've missed something in this motion, but I can't see the word ULEZ mentioned in the report. And I found it really enlightening that the leader and associates decided to spend much of their time talking about ULEZ. But actually, if you talk about some of the stuff that Councillor Lee spoke about as just one example, firstly, if you read particularly item number 2 of the recommendations, we aren't asking for anything further than an investigation into the possibilities. So, of course, the whole point of it is to investigate how much it would cost and then maybe come back to the council with those findings. And the fact that he says we're not a combined authority possibly misses the point that we collect over 80% of the council tax. So actually we have the majority of the money that a unitary authority has, such as cities like London and Nottingham. So actually, if we chose to, we could provide this. And actually, we often listen to the leader saying, now Nottinghamshire's best. Of course, we haven't got the worst roads. We just simply have more potholes to fill than everybody else. It was his excuse earlier. But if he's saying that Mr. Khan can do it, but he can't, possibly that's an admission of something else. But certainly this is possible. And actually talking about the benefit to residents in Ashfield and Nottinghamshire, the simple fact is not everybody who needs a free school meal gets it. If you qualify for free school meals, even if you become a millionaire or your circumstances change shortly after, which a lot of people do, 1 minute you're out of a job, you apply for free school meals, you get it for 3 years. And often people are getting it already that in his eyes wouldn't need it. So some of these things are done already, but actually the most important figure is those working families that don't qualify for the free school meals, that are on the breadline, really struggling. And actually, I'd much rather know that every child in our schools are getting that meal. And we all know the stats that mean that their education is better, their chances in life are better, their health improves. And we have an opportunity as a public body to deliver that. And the simple fact is, Councillor Purdy-Horan and Councillor Darby are simply asking that we investigate this. So if you disagree with the investigations later on, maybe we can say no. But it's certainly possible because other authorities are doing it. We're not asking the council to implement this today. We're simply asking that we look into providing a free school meal for the children of Nottinghamshire. And I think particularly backbench Tories, which I'm going to suggest have been whipped into voting against this, will all know at least 10 families in their own constituencies, in their own divisions, that would benefit from this and that need school meals that currently don't qualify it under the policy. So I would urge members to support Councillor Purdy-Horan and Darby's motion, and certainly the sentiment behind it. It should be commended, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hollis. Councillor Creamer, please.
Thank you. Yeah, just rising to agree with most of actually what Councillor Hollis was saying and what was actually said as well. We're asking for they're asking for something to be done, to be looked at. This problem that they've highlighted is actually getting worse, not better. High inflation and everything was already mentioned by the mover about prices and everything else actually increasing. So this problem is going to increase. It's not going to stay static. It's not going to get better. It's going to increase. So we're asking to be looked about it. And what's really annoying me and actually got me up to stand is this ULEV. Where the hell does it say about ULEV? And apart from that, it doesn't go to that in London. And perhaps you should ask your minister, and I'm not sure what he's minister for now at the moment, Rob, because he does several roles. It was him that told the Mayor of London, you will increase the ULEV, you will extend the range, or you won't get your TfL money. So it's got nothing to do with free school meals. Bragging ULEV in is pure politics for some unknown reason that you're bringing in to actually darken this motion. And you're actually mentioning people who don't need it all the time, blah, blah, blah. Yes, some people don't need it. But we're more bothered about the people that need it. And if one or two people get it that don't need it, no big deal. I would sooner make sure that everybody is properly fed. Everybody turns up for their education. Everybody is educated. And they can sit there and learn rather than sit there and starve. I would actually make sure that this was looked into urgently, not just looked into, as it says here, there's no timescale, unfortunately. I would actually bung it down as urgently, because this is going to get worse, not better. And I find you completely disingenuous with your arguments about how it's impossible and how to compare us to London. I totally agree, we're not London. Do it our way, but look at it.
Thank you, Councillor Creamer. We've got 4 more speakers on this item so far, and don't forget we have other items on the agenda. Not the time to stopping things. I'm just advising. Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, fellow councillors. Thank you for bringing this very important matter before us in a time when cost of living is spiralling out of control, and at a time when this authority has increased the cost of school meals by 16% without any scrutiny, what should be added. I thought I'd seen the last of the days when we sit in front of Conservative politicians to hear arguments that have been put already today.
Carry on, Councillor Carr. You're
Thank
eating
you,
into time. Don't forget to address the chairman.
Yes, sorry, Chair, but I'm also addressing the fellow councillors as well. Sorry if that disappoints you. And I have to reiterate what's already been said. What the hell has this debate got to do about you, Les? What the hell has it got to do with Nottinghamshire? What's happening in London with you, Les? What the hell has it got to? Do you know, I'm going to carry on saying the same thing, Chair, if I get interrupted.
If I was you, Councillor Carr, I would carry on with what else you want to say.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Lee, did I really hear you say that if people want school meals, they should move to London? Oh, he's not here. How convenient.
Chairman, point of clarification. No, I did not.
Yeah, you did. We all heard you. We all heard you. So we've got a Conservative saying that if somebody wants a free school meal, if they wants a free school meal, they should move to London where you can't afford housing and there's very little housing already. Absolutely pathetic, but absolutely typical of the Conservative way of thinking. It really, really is. And then we get the wonderful mantra, we can't afford it. We can't afford it. Well, I'm sorry, but we've been told this on several times in the past, haven't we? We couldn't afford reducing the starting level of paying income tax. Well, it would happen, and we could afford it. We couldn't afford pupil premium. Well, it was bought in, and we could afford it. We couldn't bring in free school meals for reception in years 1 and 2. Well, it was done, and we could afford it. We couldn't bring in minimum wage or the living wage because we couldn't afford it, and it turned out that we could afford it. The Conservative Party, ideologically, are opposed to anything like this. They always have been. Apart from in the Macmillan area. And then, well, many people can afford to pay for school meals, Councillor Bradley said. Well, there's a lot that can't. And there's a lot that can't, that aren't entitled to free school meals because the threshold hasn't been reviewed for 5 years, since 2018. And also, of course, the old one is you're giving millionaires money, free money that they don't need. All rich people money that they don't want. Well, in that case then, get rid of child allowance for people who are rich. Get rid of old age pensions for people who are rich. Get rid of free prescriptions for over 60s for people who are rich. Winter fuel allowance is another one, isn't it? That's given to everybody, whether they earn £100,000 or £20,000 a year. So it's an absolute nonsense. This is the lives of children we're talking about. These are children in this county who cannot afford and cannot eat. Not all of them, but some of them. So to be bringing in ULEZ and bringing in all these bringing in these ridiculous arguments about the rich and this, that and the other, just shows what the Conservative Party still are and what the Conservative Party always have been. You know exactly the cost of everything and the value of nothing, and you will always be the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. Councillor Gowland, please.
Councillor Bradley and Chair, when I was first elected and you became leader, you presented yourself as a lovely person, bringing in, zero. Oh yeah, it was all a show, wasn't it? Did I just hear you apparently praise vandalism in London? I think I did. And why are those people? And is that meant to be a representation of how people are thinking in London, or is it meant to be a few sad people who've been whipped up by people like you spouting the nonsense you spout? ULEZ is about. Oh, it's hilarious, is it? ULEZ is about protecting children from poisoning, as Dominic Raab knew. It's not. It's about protecting children from poisoning, as you know. Children die of asthma. Children die of asthma in Nottinghamshire. Asthma is high in Nottinghamshire, in the city, and it's the same in London. This is about children, as you said, as Councillor Carr said. and not about old people. That's where the money goes to old people because they vote for you. You're whipping up people to do vandalism. Free school meals are free because we know that many people are too embarrassed to put their children forward for free school meals. I'm from Rushcliffe. We've said there are 2,000 people in poverty in Rushcliffe. Those people may be too embarrassed to put their children forward for free school meals. It needs to be free for everybody. Yes, they'll go to lawyers. Yes, they'll go to footballers. There's a simple answer to that, isn't it? I hate to say it. Tax them.
Right, thank you, Councillor Gowan. Now we have 4 more speakers on this item, plus the mover of the motion to sum up. I think, given the amount of pressure on or maybe given the pressure on time, quite genuinely, if we're going to get through all the items on today's agenda, we need to keep all this in mind. So right, 2 more speakers then, and then I think Councillor Payne, I think he had his hand up. Yeah. So I really just thought I ought to mention that to you. Councillor Adams.
Thank you very much. Yes, I just want to start off with the ULEZ point, which I think is a really interesting connection to this whole debate. That's how Sadiq's paying for his school meal. Yeah. That's why it's been mentioned. And I know there's lots of noise around. Obviously, Penny seems to be a big fan of ULEZ. So effectively, what is that coming at the next general election from the Labour Party or Notts County Council? Yeah. Elections, probably. Maybe, you never know. There's been some sniffs around Gedling already around clean air monitoring. I'm sure it's only a matter of time before we try and take money directly off people who can't afford electric cars. As I'm sure, well, as we know, that scheme does, £12.50 a day, which is absolutely unbelievable. What you're talking about is, I've done a few little figures, 26,669 people are currently able to have school meals in Nottinghamshire. You would add an additional 146,331 people to that bill. Where do you get your money from? Thank you very much. There's the answer. Obviously, we've got the incoming cost analysis of ULEZ that will lead to this funding of this scheme. But what I mentioned earlier about need, and I discussed the fact earlier in my speech about a need for meals. I mentioned earlier on the points about Gedling Council because they don't use opposition members, if you remember, as chairs or deputy chairs of scrutiny. And I was making the point then about need. So how is need established? Need for a free provision. Is it a want or is it political? The truth is, when I was younger, we were a single parent family. We had free school meals and they were a life vest, not a life choice, and should remain that way. They were a way of my family to save money and receive a good meal at school. We also benefited from, excuse me if you don't mind, we also benefited from income support, which ensured we could pay our bills. We holidayed only when we got some bit of extra cash from our grandparents. This is not a sob story. I had an incredible childhood, but we needed some financial help at that time to make ends meet for the sole reason of supporting the lives of our family. A lot's changed since those times. In fact, sometimes it feels like a life away, but it was a loving home and one which I know many are not lucky enough to have. My own home with my wife and kids now, I hope feels like that to them too. It sure feels that way to me. I mean, it costs us about £118 a month currently to have school meals. Would it be good to spend it on something else? Well, the simple answer is absolutely not. I cannot find a better way to spend my money on my own children. Nothing compares to them. They are mine and my wife's kids. We chose to have them, and so we should support them if we can. And one day, if we can't, I hope the state will be there to assist us. But they shouldn't support us when we don't need that help. The idea, however, that someone on low income will be paying more tax to support my kids is bonkers. Free school meals for all means taxes for all. I will not be a councillor in this place and push unnecessary taxes on them to stroke the do-gooder's ego in the groups that remain opposite. Yeah. Their money saved in tax should be spent on how they wish, maybe in facilitating them to help to reduce their household bills through utilising energy-saving tech, maybe, or like insulation or LED bulbs, maybe, or access to better services, or maybe be able to save it for a holiday, or maybe, God forbid, those people should be able to spend that money saved on tax on not providing my children with school meals on however they wish to spend it, not on how they are forced to spend it. I want to finish clearly by saying, please support low-income families. Don't burden them to pay for mine or the parents in here and the wider Nottinghamshire that cannot afford it. so my kids can have a nice dinner on them. It's not acceptable, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Councillor Wilmot.
Thank you, Chairman, Vice Chairman. Yes, as Mr. Vice Chairman, this is, as far as I'm concerned, this motion before us today is a no-brainer. But that's my opinion. And I'd like to thank councillors Purdue, Horan and Derby for bringing this idea to us today. We know how the cost of living crisis is affecting the lives of so many people in Nottinghamshire. I see it at first hand, don't you? Now, I do not agree with councillors Bradley and many of the Tory members that will deny many children a free school meal who in some cases will be their only main meal of the day. That is a fact. Now, many children, many teachers and parents and the people of Nottinghamshire agree with this motion, totally agree with this motion. And the money that's required should be found because it's helping the people to make a living, to live correctly in life. It's a shocking statistic that it is estimated that we have still in our area 25,000 children in Nottinghamshire that are living in poverty. Absolutely disgusting, and you should be all ashamed of yourself if you think that's right. This is due to the low eligibility threshold that only 23.2% of pupils in Nottinghamshire receive school meals, free school meals. It's higher, of course, in 3 other areas, a lot higher. But we have a disgusting state of affairs that we're allowing to continue. Fruit and vegetables is of prime importance in any stable diet. But in many of our homes, this is just not happening. And the well-being of our children is being severely, severely impacted. We have the ability to change all that. We have the ability. Many times we say we don't have the ability to do anything. But we have the ability to change the lives of all these children. And I'm asking you all in this chamber, we should improve the provision of free school meals, which will improve the lives of our children, and to increase the annual payment to academy schools so to provide all primary school pupils in Nottinghamshire with a free school meal. Mr. Vice Chairman, it will help the National Health Service because a lot of the children won't need all the doctors and surgery that will be required if they go live in poverty for many, many years. So, Mr. Chairman, please, all of you, think about that situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilmot. Councillor Welsh. Councillor Welsh.
Thank you, Chairman. I've listened to the discussion from both sides of the chamber, and I'm a little confused in the sense that the motion quite clearly doesn't actually commit us to anything other than to note the impact, to investigate providing each pupil, and that the council further asks the Department of Education to increase the annual payment to academy schools to extend universal infant free school meals to all primary schools in Nottinghamshire. And I don't quite understand what is so bad about those recommendations in those motions. So the other thing that I think we need to do is to ground this argument a little bit, or this discussion, or this debate, and let's get back to reality. The truth is, and this is a fact, there are more children living in poverty in Nottinghamshire than there was 10 years ago, than there was 5 years ago, than there was a year ago. And that's not just relative poverty, that is real poverty. There is a 45% increase in food banks across Nottinghamshire, of people accessing food banks, of parents that work. Because the simple thing is, and as much as you want to deny it or say this isn't the case, the reality is there are people working that cannot afford to pay their bills, and it is a struggle. And if anybody goes into any food bank, they will meet these people and talk to these people. And very often or not, they are hard working people. The government's own data shows 2 million children are living in food insecure households. There are 4.2 million children in poverty, a third of all children in this country, and a shocking increase of 600,000 children since 2010 and 11. 70% of that is from a working family. So what this motion is asking you to do here is to look at your own statistics, your own data, that shows there are children going hungry in our schools. And anybody, Councillor Smith, that says a school meal during the day is the only hot, decent meal the child gets isn't happening is incorrect. And I can take you next week, Sam, to 2 schools where that is happening on a regular basis. In addition to that, when I openly talked about the fact of the increase to free school meals, and I was told on the radio by Councillor Cotter, who's unfortunately not here today, schools don't have to put the price up, they can subsidise it. Schools are asking for parents for extra money for resources. £3 I've been asked for. And that might not sound like a lot, but schools are asking for extra resources. And then we don't actually face the fact of actually schools are already subsidising meals. There are children that turn up to schools in Nottinghamshire, in your area, Ben Bradley, where you represent, which is why it's even more shameful, with half-empty lunchboxes, with nothing in their lunchboxes. And do you know who pays for their school meal? Teachers. Schools out of their budget that is already stretched. It is an absolute national disgrace. And the fact that we've had opposition members laughing, joking, Councillor Sam Smith saying children don't go without a meal, this is a point of advice. I know it because my own party was there at one point. Unless you start getting a grip of reality of what is going on in every single one of your communities, you'll be out. You will be out. Children are going hungry. There is nothing in that motion, in those recommendations, that you shouldn't be able to support. Nothing. Investigate it. Acknowledge the impact. See if you can do it. Instead, all we've had from the leader, Councillor Ben Bradley, 21 million. Would you know what? Go back to the schools and say, is there a way that we can help you with those children that are going hungry in your school where work isn't paying? It's saying investigate it, Ben, and help those children and help those families, because you've been a disgrace.
Thank you, Councillor Welsh. Now, we're going to have to be strict now. 3 more speakers on this, and plus the person to sum up. So, Councillor Taylor next, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I hope you'll indulge me if I actually bring the debate back to the resolution we're being asked to make today, because I think we've gone off somewhere into outer space in some of the debate, and I'm not looking at this side of the room. No, I'm not.
Please, come on, people.
I struggle with a poorly crafted motion because it makes it so impossible to support. I've made notes from some of the colleagues. Councillor Hollis, you said, and Councillor Welsh has just echoed, this only wants us to investigate. And I understand the reason for crafting the language of a motion that way, because you're saying then we don't have to decide today, we don't have to worry about the budget cost, and you don't have to think about the tough bits when you're asking us to do something, so you can do all your grandstanding, do all your virtue signalling. I'm speaking, Councillor Zadrozny.
Jay, come on, we're so tight on time. Just carry on.
If you understand.
I think it's highly unfair for the member to allege or when the Constitution has specifically screwed down wording so that officers have to check wording of motions and approve them and ask us to do it in a certain way. I would like some clarification.
motion that those motions were accepted properly by legal officers who checked the wording was appropriate.
Yeah. Chief yes, all of the motions that are in the book have been validated.
Councillor Taylor.
Forgive me, Chairman, I'm not challenging that at all. What I'm saying is that they are folly and show a lack of understanding. You talk about the process. Let's go through the process, because I understand it, and it's a pity you didn't take the chance and opportunity to find out what it was to start with. Schools have the responsibility to determine how meals will be delivered for children, whether they have kitchens or not. I'm not talking about funding the meals, I'm talking about how lunchtime provision will be dealt with. Some of our schools are maintained, some of our schools are academies. One way or another, it's the governing bodies who determine how lunchtime provision will be made. Free school meals, universal free school meals, are funded through a stream direct from government to the schools. Benefits related free school meals likewise funded. It is not incumbent on this authority to provide the funding stream that does universal or benefits related free school meals. That's the process. That's a starting point. How much will it cost? We've already looked at some numbers, and Councillor Bradley gave you some ballpark figures. I can tell you that it's an average year group of about 8,000 children through all school years in this county. That means if I take the 4 years you're talking about, years 3 to 6, I know how many children we've got approximately. So if I want to spitball some numbers now, I can. I can fine tune that with my officers. I understand my brief. There are approximately 32,500 children on my crude numbers who would qualify within those years for the proposition you're putting forward. On the numbers we already understand who are benefits preschool meal children, discount 75% of them. We have to fund the rest. If I start to go through how many children is that, how many school days a year is that, I'm coming out with in excess of 4.5 million extra meals to be funded, according to you, by this authority. Now, I know there's a difference between the academy schools and the maintained schools, but we're on about 50-50 population split. So that's 2.25 million extra meals a year to be funded by this authority. So I'm quite happy. I don't need to task anybody to bullet point 2, because I know my brief. And if I talk about poorly crafted motions, and it has been passed by the officer, because it is the officer to determine that you have used legal language, not that you know what you're talking about. And bullet point 3 shows that you do not. Bullet point 3 says to write to the DFE to ask them to fund extra to extend universal infant free school meals to all primary schools in Nottinghamshire. 2 things wrong with that one sentence. Why would they have a policy for Nottinghamshire that they don't have nationwide? Why? And just by way of reminding you all, that universal provision already exists in all primary schools. So if you can't get the language of your motion right, how the heck do you expect anybody to support it?
Right, thank you, Councillor Taylor. Thank you. Right, final 2 speakers. Please. Yeah. Councillor Carr, we're wasting time. Councillor Payne, please. And then the final 2 speakers, Councillor Payne and then...
Thank you very much, Mr Vice Chairman. I don't really know where to start. This motion, to coin a phrase, Councillor Taylor, let's return to what this motion is actually about. We had a debate earlier about not even voting in on this chamber on votes that are noting. This motion is asking us to note, to investigate, and to ask for some additional money from the DFE. And the leader of the council got himself into a massive lather about it and started talking about Sadiq Khan and started talking about ULEZ and started talking about whatever else. And everybody looking into this debate from outside can see what that wrought of. Desperation. A person who dare not stand up and simply say what he genuinely believes in his heart, which is that he doesn't agree
with free school meals or tackling child poverty in the way that the way that the people on this side of the chamber have articulated. And if you want to have a debate in the next few months about this, in the lead up to the mayoral election, we'll have that debate with you any time, any place, anywhere. Bring it on. Let's just scot a few myths before we get onto free school meals about the whole debate around ULEZ, because I can see what you're all trying to do, because you're so desperate that you're not going to win your parliamentary constituencies or your county divisions. Set up a boogeyman and let's scare people. £1 million was wasted of taxpayer money by your colleagues who run the 5 Conservative councils that failed their legal challenge in court against ULEZ. They were arguing that the mayor, who had been democratically elected, didn't have a mandate to carry out the ULEZ charge. Do you know how many free school meals they could have funded for children in their areas on that £1 million of taxpayers funding that they wasted? 350,000 free school meals. They could have built multiple primary schools. They could have invested in council nurseries. But instead, they decided to go after a political attack against a mayor of London that has outmanoeuvred them at every single turn. And I tell you what, I don't shy away from the debate, because if you want to judge Sadiq Khan on his record, this is a man who's not only feeding children who are facing poverty, but he's also saving children who otherwise would be inhaling toxic gases. And I will stand by his record any single day of the week. And the other thing about ULEZ, just before we start running off a debate around this city and county about who may or may not bring it in, let's also just be clear with the public. Who was it who announced the ULEZ charge when he was the then elected Mayor of London in 2014? One Boris Johnson. The self-same Boris Johnson that you lined up for every single week in the House of Commons to vote for. So don't come here and argue one thing one week in Westminster and then pull out the wool over the people's eyes here in the county when you come here. And he ran a public consultation, by the way, Boris Johnson, in 2015 to ask the public about the Central London ULEZ charge. And he then said that he would go on with it and it would be implemented by September 2020. Do you know who funded the ULEZ charge that Boris Johnson announced? One David Cameron. Forgive me, but my history told me that David Cameron was a Tory Prime Minister, not a Labour Prime Minister. And I just finish on this point, Mr. Vice Chairman. It comes as absolutely no surprise from you, Ben Bradley, to be getting in all of the lather and to be giving us hyperbole in here about ULEZ and about free school meals and about you casting aspersions about what they may or may not cost to people, because this is the self-same Ben Bradley who in October 2020, when there was a debate taking place online, said, and I quote, Mr. Vice Chairman, "At one school in Mansfield, 75% of kids have a social worker, 25% of parents are illiterate. Their estate is the centre of their area's crime. One kid lives in a crack den, another in a brothel. These are the kids that most need our help extending free school meals, and it doesn't reach them." Somebody responded, Mr. Vice Chairman, and said this to the leader of this county council: £20 cash direct to a crack den and brothel really sounds like the way forward with this one. Our leader of the county council responded by saying this: "That's what free school meal vouchers did in the summer, effectively did in the summer." You are a man who has got absolutely no shame. You knew when you said it online it wasn't true. The free school meal vouchers were only able to be used at supermarkets, but instead you tried to denigrate the working class to raise yourself votes in Mansfield, which is exactly what you're trying to do now around this county. What's really on the table here is this, and there is a choice for the people looking into this debate. Do you stand on this side of the chamber, and this side of the chamber wants to put £440 back in the pocket of those people facing poverty, or do you stand on that side of the chamber? All they've done is throw smoke and mirrors throughout this debate because they've lost the grip on this country. Child poverty is raised on them, and they haven't got the answers to the debate that is on this table. Shame on you. Bring on the mayoral election. You're going to win. You're going to lose hands down.
Time's up. Councillor Helen-Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I've been listening quite closely to this debate, and there was just a few bits that I wanted to pick up on. And a lot's been said about ULEZ, and the less we go into that, the better, I think, at the moment. But that's been picked up on because we talk about the free school meals being rolled out in London. But we also talk about free school meals being rolled out in Scotland and in Wales. There isn't a ULEZ charge in Wales. So why do you just pick up on the one part that fits into your rhetoric, that muddies the waters, that scares people, that makes them think that we're going to put a ULEZ in just to pay for this, when we haven't said that we're going to do any of that stuff. We've said, let's investigate it. Let's look at it. You keep saying it, that there's a number of people that won't benefit, that don't need it, but will benefit from it. That's what an investigation will show. It'll give me those stats. It'll give me those stats. I will be able to see that on paper. And Councillor Taylor, you said something that shocked me a little bit. You said it's not incumbent on this authority to do that. There's a lot of things that aren't incumbent on an authority that authorities do because it's the right thing to do. Yeah. It doesn't mean that you have to do it. It's you choose to do it because it's the right thing. In Ashfield, we don't have to have one of the best community safety departments in the county, but we've got it. We put more money into it than any council in the county because it's the right thing to do. We don't have to do that. And you're right, we don't have to do this. It's not incumbent on this council to do this, but it's the right thing to do. It's putting our residents first, and I'm quite surprised that you even actually said that, Councillor Taylor. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Right, thank you, Councillor. Right, we at the end of the speakers now. Councillor Purdue-Horan, you moved the original motion. Now is your opportunity to wind matters up and to just keep in mind the time restriction limitations. But over to Councillor Purdue-Horan.
The clock says 4:14. Is that correct? I've got 10 minutes and I'll be watching that. Thank you. 4:50. Mr. Chairman, I'm very pleased that we've had the opportunity to raise this issue. It has certainly brought out some strong, impassioned opinions. I'm disappointed, obviously, that the controlling administration appear to be setting themselves against the suggestion, as everyone on this side of the chamber gets it and have read the motion correctly, to note, to investigate, and to ask for further assistance towards something that we might want to pursue. And this is something that would help improve scrutiny, which we discussed earlier. By scrutinising what we have proposed today would help us understand what are the challenges that we would face in providing a more universal offering to our younger children. Mr. Chairman, I don't know much about the London Mayor competition. I caught a phone-in on Tuesday. The Conservative candidate was on the LBC show with Nick Ferrari. And all I can remember from that is about half of the hour was taken up with her apologising for some extremely ugly and offensive tweets over a long period. And I did know a lot of characters in CCHQ. They would be throwing their arms up at how they allowed such a character to represent the Conservative Party in the London Mayor election next year. So I'm not confident at all that as people scrutinise your candidate, that she stands any chance. But that's another matter. And I agree with the points made that Councillor Bradley, the leader, has sought to sort of put some smoke and mirrors in front of it all. There's at least one candidate on this side of the chamber, when they are elected to Parliament, will not be sucked into the celebrity lifestyle that some people were sucked into down in London. And I would suggest that the leader of this council acquaints himself more with what the people of Nottinghamshire need and want, and what he should be representing them for. the London bubble, as we know, has its attractions, but it also has its dangers. Mr. Chairman, I think Councillor Bradley is obsessed with rich children or children of rich parents and footballers. I never went to school with any professional children of professional footballers, and I actually didn't go to school with any children of millionaires. They all tended to go to private schools. This motion does not actually ask for anything regarding that sort of part of our society. And indeed, by pressing ahead with your prejudicial attitudes to this, you are forgetting the wise words, actually, in hindsight, of one of the prime ministers that the Conservative machine chewed up and spat out, Prime Minister Theresa May, who described that she cared for the just about managing the jams. And their position, Mr. Chairman, has got worse in the last 5-6 years. Poverty is increasing. And a lot of those individuals are suffering. And what we're trying to expand is the offering to those children who don't qualify automatically at the moment for free school meals. And as one of the head teachers said to one of my colleagues, how do you explain to a child who sees other children with food and the catering staff have to stand there and say no? How do you explain that? And the child does not understand. I did not understand when I received free school meals, Mr. Chairman, that it actually aided my learning. And I'm grateful for the qualifications I obtained, because it's clear having free school meals assisted me looking back. Mr. Chairman, I would urge my former Conservative colleagues, and by the way, I have to say, after just this performance today, I am damn glad I'm on this side of the chamber. I'd be walking across if I was still over there. So I'll ignore the ULEZ business, Mr. Chairman, because that's a complete red herring. But thank you for those who have supported me. And if I've persuaded any of my colleagues, because I know there's some good guys over there and gals, I hope you can at least support that we look further into this, because it's going to happen. And this side of the chamber gets it. And in 18 months' time, it's going to happen. I will be here. I will be here. Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you. Right, thank you, Councillor Cody. Right, thank you. Just yes, microphone. We've had a long, detailed debate, and we're at the point now where we need to take a vote. Not the time preempting anything, but I would just remind colleagues of the change of constitution that referred to the way of voting, and when it comes to recorded votes, perhaps any request for a recorded vote has to be made before any show of hands is made.
Recorded vote, please.
Point. We want a recorded vote. Okay, right. So with that in mind, then we now move to the 10 hands. Oh, we have to have 10 hands. Yeah, 10 hands for a recorded vote. Yeah, I think we got 10 hands for that. The way, just to remind everyone how it works now, in the old days you used to have the hand votes and then a separate recorded vote. The way it's done now is done on a single asking of the question. That's correct, isn't it? Yes. So, right, over to Chief Exec, please.
Okay, members, thank you. We'll run through for the recorded vote then, please, starting with Councillor Adair.
Against.
Councillor Adams.
Against.
Councillor Allen. Councillor Anderson.
Against.
Councillor Bailey. Councillor Barney.
Against.
Councillor Barnfather.
Against.
Councillor Bradley. Councillor Butler.
Against.
Councillor Callaghan. Councillor Camilleri.
Against.
Councillor Carlton.
Against.
Councillor Carr.
For.
Councillor John Clark. Councillor Neil Clark.
Against.
Councillor Corden. Councillor Creamer.
For.
Councillor Darby.
For.
Councillor Doddy. Councillor Eddy.
Against.
Councillor Elliott.
Against.
Councillor Fielding. Councillor Fole. Councillor Garner. Councillor Girling.
Against.
Councillor Gowland.
For.
Councillor Henry.
For.
Councillor Hollis.
For.
Councillor Introna. Councillor Richard Jackson. Councillor Roger Jackson.
Against.
Councillor Kerry.
Against.
Councillor Lee. Councillor Madden.
For.
Councillor McGrath.
For.
Councillor Meakin.
For.
Councillor Moxon.
Against.
Councillor Oliver.
For.
Councillor Owen.
Against.
Councillor Payne.
For.
Councillor Pringle.
For.
Councillor Perdue Horan.
For.
Councillor Quigley.
Against.
Councillor Shaw.
For.
Councillor Helen Ann Smith.
For.
Councillor Sam Smith. Councillor Tom Smith. Councillor Taylor. Councillor Turner. Councillor Upton. Councillor Waters. Councillor Welsh.
For.
Councillor Gordon Wheeler.
Against.
Councillor Williamson. Sorry. Councillor Wilmot. Councillor Zadrozny. Okay, bear with us.
Right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. The votes are 26 for the motion, 30 against. There were no abstentions, so the motion doesn't pass. It's not passed. It falls, yes. So we have two more motions on the agenda. We have an hour and 2 minutes left of the meeting. Keep that in mind, please. So move on to motion 2. This is support for Wilko staff in Nottinghamshire. And Councillor Kate Fole is going to start on this, please. Councillor Fole.
Okay, just some calm, because we have tried to word this motion very carefully, so we could not see why everybody in this chamber couldn't support this. Helping our Wilko staff is really, really important to us, and I'm sure it is to everybody in this chamber. So please, can you support this? I think it's very clear to us all that the closure of the Wilko stores is a huge blow to the people of this county. More than 2,000 of our residents are now likely to be out of work, with Bassetlaw very badly hit, where there's a large distribution centre, as we all know. At the time this motion was submitted, there were 15 Wilko stores in Nottinghamshire, with one in 6 out of 7 districts and boroughs. So many of our communities will be affected. I'm sure you're all aware of that. I understand that Poundland are taking on stores in Kimberley and Worksop and in my Beeston division, but I'm uncertain about what terms and conditions they will be given and if they will enjoy any long-term security. In Beeson, Panwell is just a few hundred yards away from the Wilco, so I'm not quite sure how that's going to work, how sustainable that will be in the longer term. For anyone who's been into Wilco since the announcement that the business was closing, it's felt so sad. Some staff have worked in these stores for many years, and if the Beeson store is anything to go by, the workforce clearly felt like family. Working at Wilco was more than a job for many of those staff. They lost the opportunity at very short notice to serve the communities they belong to. It must feel brutal out now. These are people who really care about serving others. The service, in my experience, was always good and offered kindly. And the cost of living crisis must be hitting them even harder now. Remember, some of those staff may have seen their mortgages double over the last year because of the mini budget. And we all know how much many rents have increased. So I really hope everyone in this chamber can show how much we care about those now without employment, and that we'll be really prepared to be proactive, dig deep into our resources, and really help our people find a decent job. And it's in your plan. Ambition 4 of the Nottinghamshire Plan says we should use our position as a major employer to create training and development opportunities. And Nottinghamshire needs a skilled workforce that can compete on a local and global stage. And we want our residents to have good, quality, rewarding jobs. So this is one of your ambitions. If Wilco staff want another rewarding job, where better to work than for this council? Especially when there are so many vacant jobs in our workforce that prevent us providing some of our frontline services to those who need it most. We're all aware of the ongoing challenge of recruitment for our social care service, with a current vacancy rate in Nottinghamshire around 9.5%. There is a serious need for more staff in the care sector. Everybody's talking about it across the whole country, working as care assistants in community care roles, as well as some supervisory and management roles. Anyone who's been into Wilco's, as I mentioned before, will have experienced the quality of care from their excellent staff. That experience of working at the front line with staff, some of them in quite challenging conditions, could hugely benefit our residents and give them a decent job. And then look at ambition 5 of your plan. We have bold plans for the Nottinghamshire economy. We want to particularly support those communities that will benefit most from better job opportunities. I'm going to repeat that last ambition because I think it's a brilliant one. We want to particularly support those communities that will benefit most from better job opportunities. Well, now is the time to do that. And this isn't just about the economy, however important that is. This is about real people, real families and individuals who've lived through some really tough times, including pit closures, terrible austerity, a pandemic, a cost of living crisis, leaving them struggling to make ends meet, and a real battle too to get the service they need from their local councils, including this one, for their children and many of those that they're caring for because of the massive cuts to all our budgets. This is an opportunity to show at least some people in this county that we care enough to support them and that we're prepared to do so both quickly and generously. Another of your ambitions is to improve health and well-being in all our communities. For people able to work, and I know not everybody can, getting a good job is key to reaching that ambition. So let us show our residents that we're on their side and that we want them to be financially secure, happy and healthy. Please support our motion.
Yeah. Well said, Jay.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Fole. Councillor Callaghan, I believe you wish to second this motion.
Yeah, I'd like to second this motion and reserve my right to speak.
Reserve your right to speak. And Councillor Girling.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairman. Councillor Fole, you're absolutely right. The staff of Wilco's are very important to us, and that is why I'm going to bring an amendment, because I don't want to think that we've been waiting to do something. I want the amendment to reflect how important they really are to us. So Claire's just going to bring an amendment round, which I hope that this house, everybody in this chamber will be able to support. Thank you.
Right, colleagues, I think everyone has a copy of the amendment now. So, Councillor Girling, you've moved this amendment. Would you like to? Sorry, you need to move the amendment now.
Yeah. Do I do my thing at the same time? Okay. Right. Thank you, Chairman. As I said in the preamble to this is about showing that they really do care to us, and I think the reason it's only 2 words is because we really do support the motion. But actually, I didn't want them to think we sat on our hands waiting to see, well, what are we going to do? Indeed, I think when this broke, if I'm right in saying, I was actually out of the country at the time. I was in Poland, and I got on to my team to say what we're doing about it. We need to be engaged. And Reg actually went out and did a press release. So it's the spirit of what you want to get out of there, and it shows that actually we are being proactive rather than just waiting. And realistically, a lot of this is down to the districts and boroughs with their economic development teams because they're actually on the ground, but we're supporting them. So the change of the motion would read to continue to use our position as a major employer in the county to establish links to support a significant number of Wilco staff in Nottinghamshire with transferable skills who are at risk of losing their employment. 2, to continue taking additional steps to connect Wilco staff to existing opportunities and to offer opportunities to learn new skills with a view to joining our valued workforce. And 3, to measure additional actions taken in order to evidence and demonstrate the impact. As a council, we have established links through the Wilco event at Bridge Skills Hub. Members of staff from the Economic Development Team, HR and Skills and Employment were present to share our wide range of current opportunities, as well as taking through our range of apprenticeships and signposting people to opportunities across Nottinghamshire. We are due to attend a second event tomorrow, the 28th of September, to engage with Wilco staff again. Any ex-Wilco staff that join us will be supported as required in upskilling them for the role they will be undertaking. This will involve a range of methods from on-the-job training, our range of learning and development courses and opportunities, as well as apprenticeships at various levels as appropriate. The Council's NOTS Opportunities Employment and Skills Platform will also provide a useful tool for people to access a range of training courses and can search through current job vacancies. We are connected with Wilco staff personally at the 2 above events with details of our current vacancies available to discuss or take away through leaflets and QR codes. These are with a view to them joining our workforce. We are also available to take down people's details if they have a specific role they are interested in and want further information, or want to keep in contact with them about future opportunities. We took steps to engage with people via social media before and after the events, and that will obviously continue. The Growth Infrastructure and Development Group have also linked in with local businesses to also attend these events through social media. In fact, a company in Newark and Sherwood, in fact Newark, Barcode Warehouse, also attended those events because they're looking for those kinds of skills as well. Furthermore, our business advisors who worked with SMEs in the area are also flagging the opportunities to recruit Wilco staff, especially those in HQs as skilled workforce. We are also supporting our colleagues in the districts and boroughs with a potential impact on vacant shops on our high streets. And then the measures obviously will work and support providing and record anything that happens through that work. So it's a slight change, but I think it's an important change because it does actually show that we're on it and we're trying to do as much as we can. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Girling. Councillor Tom Smith, I think you want to second this. Do you wish to speak now?
Thank you, Chairman. I'll second it, but nothing to add at this point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, Councillor Fole, do you want to adjourn or we accept the amendment? Right. Okay. Okay, so we have the substantive motion. Councillor Hollis, you wish to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. The Independent Alliance Group have an amendment to circulate as well, so potentially before I speak, it may be best to be circulated. Thank you.
Point of order, Chairman. Point of order.
Councillor Girling, yes.
Yeah, I'm a bit confused by this because they're amending the original, not mine.
We're going to.
Okay.
Just
Yep.
Calm, Councillor Girling. We'll just. Okay, colleagues, I think we've all got a copy of the amended amendment, which has been moved by Councillor Hollis. Councillor Hollis, would you like to tell us about your amendment, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think everybody will agree that the new governance changes just make everything so simple. I don't think that's the thing. But first, I want to thank the Labour Group for bringing this motion to the Council today. This is a responsible motion that will support thousands. And let's be honest, Mr. Chairman, the Conservative administration here have a track record of people who lose their jobs. When members, of course, lost the job in recent elections, we're prepared to break the law and get them into employment. We're simply asking that they show the same level of passion and tenacity for ex-Wilco workers. That's why I think the Tory party will vote for this amended motion today. News that Wilco stores will close is devastating for both employers and our town centres. Like other councils, Ashfield is offering as much support as we can, alongside the DWP, to affected workers. These stores are a huge part of our retail offer in both Hucknall and Sutton in Ashfield. We have a jobs fair in Ashfield at the new Kirkby in Ashfield Leisure Centre on October the 6th, and we are doing everything possible to help ex-Wilco's workers. I'd like to also commend the work of Councillor James Nash and Joe White at Bassetlaw District Council and the work they've done. The demise of Wilco will have an impact similar to a pit closure on the Bassetlaw community, the District Council have said. The retailer's collapse means an estimated 2,000 people will lose their jobs across Walsall, and the surrounding areas. Worksop and the surrounding areas, where the High Street's giant distribution centre and support offices are based. In Hucknall and Sutton and Ashfield, it leaves a huge hole in our town centres. Retailers like Wilko face an existential crisis due to the inflationary pressure, the cost of living and rising interest rates. I'm disappointed the Conservative government have failed at options to save Wilko, to look into options to save Wilko, just like they did the banks. If the government was serious about really levelling up, they would intervene to protect the jobs and save our high streets. As I said, Mr Vice Chairman, these closures will have a heavy impact on Hucknall and Sutton and Ashfield, like many other towns across the UK. All we have done with the motion, in our view, is to improve it. We agree that encouraging Wilko workers to apply for jobs at this council, it would help solve the huge recruitment issues we face in all departments. I would like to go further and seek clarification if, as a council, we can guarantee ex-Wilko workers an interview for county council roles. What the Independent Alliance are basically suggesting this afternoon is adding a paragraph. Offer support to help ex-Wilko employees transition into new opportunities successfully and facilitate connections with businesses and stakeholders seeking candidates with similar set of skills. This is similar to what other councils are doing across the country. We have a number of key partners, not least Veer East Midlands, the ARC Partnership, Nottinghamshire Police, EMAS and the NHS. Companies we procure services and food from. Wouldn't it be great to see Wilko staff solving some of the council's main issues? They can help us in the mammoth task of fixing our broken roads and pavements. They could help rebuild our crumbling schools for the future generations. They could even, Mr Vice Chairman, help serve venison in our canteens. They could help solve that. They could help solve our policing crisis and fill the gap left by 20 less police officers across the county since 2010. This motion is a clear attempt to deal with the biggest mass employment issue since the Tories closed the pits in the 80s. In meeting after meeting, we hear about key services like social care, education, and everything else being impacted by recruitment issues. We have the facilities to help. The Tories refused last year to turn our libraries into
30
warm
seconds,
rooms.
Tom.
But why not work with Inspire and Job Centre Plus on using our libraries to provide retraining to equip ex-Wilko workers with the skills to help us? The Labour Party should be commended for bringing this key issue to the council. We are in a position to help, Mr Vice Chairman, and help we should. Please accept the motion as amended.
Thank you, Councillor Hollis, and Councillor Helen Ann Smith. You're seconding this. Do you wish to speak now, or?
Thank you, Mr Vice Chairman. I'll second that and reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, Councillor Fold, you were the mover of the original motion. You've accepted the first amendment to the motion. Do you accept this other amendment? Okay, well, 5 minutes, and we mean 5 minutes. So it's 10 to 5 now. Back at 5 to 5. Come on, listen, pay attention. That was a very long 5 minutes. It was 7 minutes. Right, we've had the adjournment. Welcome back, everybody. Councillor Folm, what is your position regarding the Second Amendment? Righty-ho, thank you very much. Now, oh, right. So, thank you for that. We do have speakers. Primarily the seconders of the original motion, the amended motion, and the amended motion, who all have reserved their rights to speak, and we also have one additional speaker as well. So we need to take Councillor. Yes. So we will have Councillor Helen Ann Smith, please, because you proposed the amended. You seconded the amended. Please bearing in mind, colleagues, as well, we absolutely have to finish the whole meeting at 5:30. We need to allow a good quarter of an hour to sum up, so just bear that in mind, everyone, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will be brief. This motion is entirely sensible. The closure of Wilko's has left a huge gap on our high streets and has sent shockwaves throughout Nottinghamshire. We need to do everything possible to help ex-workers from Wilko's. This has thrown a huge spanner in the regeneration efforts across the county, and I agree that if this government was serious about levelling up, they would have intervened, just like they did with the banks. Let's send a message today that we are on the side of every Wilko's worker who has lost their job. Mr. Vice Chairman, this has affected a lot of people across the county, a lot in my division, a lot in everyone's division. While ever we've got the opportunity to do something that helps, that benefits them, let's do it. Let's forget party politics. Let's just do what's right for the people of Nottinghamshire. And I'll end on that point, Mr. Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Helen Smith. Thank you for your brevity as well. Councillor Tom Smith, you seconded the original motion. Do you wish to, and you reserve the right to speak, do you wish to add anything? No? Oh.
No, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Callaghan, you seconded the first amended version. Do you reserve the right? Do you wish to speak?
Yeah. So actually, after a fraught day today, I'm really pleased to see that all parties agree with supporting the ex-Wilko staff to find training and jobs going forward. I've got to say, in Mansfield, the DWP got off to a slow start because they agreed to meet the Mansfield staff last week, and at lastminute.com they cancelled that meeting. It is taking place today, but actually that did cause a lot of stress and a lot of concern for some of the members that of staff at the Mansfield store. I've got several parents that are single parents and they've got children with additional needs that did till today work at Wilko's store. So just bearing in mind going forward, some of these staff or lone parents caring for children with additional needs, so they can only work in term time hours. So we've got to come up with a flexible plan, especially if you're talking about care, because school hours doesn't always sort the care needs out of people. So we need to be really flexible when we're trying to support. And thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor Callaghan. And now, next speaker on the list is Councillor Gordon Wheeler.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. It will be very brief because a lot of it is already covered by Councillor Girling earlier on. Just for clarification, the second event at the same venue, which is this one, which was on the 14th of September, the first event we went and we organised. This was the second. While we've been here today, was the second event, not tomorrow. There was some crossover in dates. Don't worry, Vicky. It's one of those things. It was today. Councillor Gurley mentioned, as soon as he heard about this, he got onto economic development staff. Well, as soon as we heard about it in personnel, Jonathan and myself got onto our HR staff. So between all of us, we were on it. Tom Katsopoulos, you asked earlier on, we should be doing whatever we could for our staff. We did, right from the word go, which is how all the photographs, these are the photographs of the first event we organised. So we attended, our staff attended from economic development and HR. Brilliant job they've done, talking to workers' staff,
explained to them what options they had available to them, and giving every offer of assistance we possibly could. I'm sure you'll applaud that. Well, we've done the same again today. What have we all been in here? Talking for it seems like hours and hours and hours. So I'm very, 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 very pleased that we're able to do what we've done and position we're in, and that support, as Keith said earlier on, Councillor Gulling said earlier on, will carry on for as long as we need it to happen. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Willow. Councillor Steve Garner, please.
Thank you. Well, I'd just like to say, can we go to the vote? Because we've got three parties here, and me, all agree the same. So let's just go and vote and get on with third motion. Thank you very much.
Some of us aren't in a party.
We need a bit of an explanation here.
Okay, so the original motion was moved by Councillor Folmont, seconded by Councillor Callaghan. The Conservatives moved an amendment which added 2 words, continuing to the first and second point. That was accepted by Councillor Fole as the mover of the original motion, so it became the substantive motion. The Independent Alliance, in the form of Councillor Hollis, then moved an amendment to the revised substantive motion, adding another point, point 3. That has also been accepted by the mover of the original motion. So, the motion that you will be voting on in a second will be the composite of the original motion, your amendment adding the word continuing, and then the Independent Alliance motion. That is what you'll be voting on. Yes. Oh, you don't want?
No, you can't because it's become the substantive.
It's become the substantive. But you can't. Yeah, that's what we're trying to do.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, we've had a few queries. Motions are always fun, aren't they? We've had the motion moved, seconded, amended again. The mover of the motion has agreed to that. No more speakers on this. Shall we make a decision? Show of hands, those in favour.
Does get
sorry.
to sum up.
Oh, I'm sorry, you should sum up, shouldn't you? Sorry, beg your pardon. Yeah.
She does get to sum up. Although we did have.
Yeah. Councillor Fole, do you, as the mover of the original motion, do you wish to sum up?
Okay, thank you. Yes, okay, that's thank you. Just say thank you. I think the motion is a good one now, and the cross-party support is very much appreciated. And I'm glad that you're doing stuff already. That's brilliant. But please let's do more. Let's be really proactive. Let's kind of keep doing it. One of the things I did want to mention as well, a little bit more kind of strongly, is what is now the 4th resolution, which is to measure additional actions taken in order to evidence and demonstrate impact. Please, can we get that soon? Please, can we scrutinise it properly? Okay, because I think that's really important. We're all in good heart now, and we all say, yeah, hooray, we're going to do some really good stuff, but we want to see some clear evidence of that. Okay. So I'll leave that one with you. Okay. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fole. You have left that with the council, so thank you for that, and it's duly noted. Right, now we can go to the right. So now we're going to go to the vote on this for the amended motion, which we spent a heck of a lot of time over, and it is important. We need to take a vote. Show of hands, please, in favour. And I think that's unanimous, so thank you very much. Peace and harmony, yeah. Now, this means that we now have 24 minutes left of the meeting. We have one more motion to go. I propose, if everyone's happy, that we start. Yes, I think we are keen to get on with this. So, motion 3 is drop off and pick up provision on new school sites. Councillor Sam Smith to move the motion, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The moment we've all been waiting for is finally here. I believe I've got 10 minutes, but I won't take that long. But 10 minutes is about half the time that it takes my residents to drive along Barnby Road in Newark or Bulpit Road in Balderton during school drop-off and pick-up times as a result of congestion caused by traffic to and from local schools. But, Mr Vice Chairman, it's not just passing Barnby Road or Bullpit Road that can be difficult to do so during school pick-up and drop-off times. Navigating past most schools across the county during these times can be time-consuming, dangerous and difficult. Mr Vice Chairman, congested streets around our schools are a daily scenario that residents in all our divisions face, with chaos of cars pulling up on residential streets outside schools, blocking junctions and driveways, and the stress of navigating through a sea of vehicles during the pick-up and drop-off period. But, Mr Vice Chairman, congestion is not just an inconvenience, it's a significant safety concern. Our children's safety should always be a top priority, and the situations of cars jostling for spaces and pedestrians darting between vehicles poses a real risk to their well-being. In an ideal world, Mr Vice Chairman, those able to walk, cycle and scoot to school would. But in reality, that does not always happen, as most working parents and carers drop their children off at school while on their way to work. This, of course, happens at the same time as drivers are getting on with their daily tasks, such as driving to work or the shops. These congestion issues not only block residential streets, they also negatively contribute to air pollution and fill councillors' inboxes with complaints from residents. Now, Mr Vice Chairman, we may not be able to fully remove these issues at schools that have existed for many decades and surround pre-existing residential streets. But we can, as the point has been made by myself and colleagues on the Planning Committee for many years, mitigate similar congestion issues occurring around new schools. This Council's new school guidance for housing developers states that any school to be built on land presently in the ownership of this Council will be expected to include drop-off and pick-up provision on the school sites itself to minimise impacts on residential areas, while still promoting alternative means of travel to schools such as walking, cycling, scooting and public transport. This, Mr Vice Chairman, is obviously welcome and will help to prevent school drop-off and pick-up traffic from blocking residential streets near schools that are approved to be built on county land after May 2023, which was when the strategy was introduced. Sadly, though, that does not address schools that are built on other land and subject to planning permission approved by district and borough councils, such as Rivendell Academy and Stoke Bardolph. And as a result, Mr Vice Chairman, this council and our taxpayers end up with a bill for the installation of double yellow lines or other parking restrictions shortly after new schools open near residential areas. But we, in this chamber, could change that, Mr Vice Chairman, by ensuring that when a planning application is made for the construction of a new school on any land in Nottinghamshire, as a statutory consultee, this council could respond to the relevant planning authority, including borough and district councils, to request that developers and the planning authority make land available to include a drop-off and pick-up point within the boundary of a new school site. Doing so will improve road safety, prevent queues of traffic outside new schools, reduce the expense of this council having to install parking restriction methods at a later date, mitigate congestion on residential streets, and lower the CO2 emissions outside schools. New schools should be the heartbeat of new communities, not the headache of them. That is why having a designated drop-off and pick-up point within the boundary of new schools across our county is not just a convenience, it's a necessity. It enhances the safety of our children, reduces traffic congestion, benefits the environment and fosters a community spirit while supporting local businesses. It's a win-win solution that we should all rally behind. And that, Mr Vice Chairman, is why I move the motion as set out in the agenda pack and encourage all councillors to vote for it.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Andre Camilleri, you wish to second the motion? Do you wish to speak?
Second that motion.
Residents get very frustrated and annoyed about dangerous parking and congestion around any school. As you well know, I've told you that many times, especially if the cars are outside their houses or their businesses. Still, sometimes we are able to explain when our predecessors built the schools many years ago, planners could not have anticipated the number of children being brought to and from school by car and the overall volume of modern traffic. However, it is much harder to explain to parents and residents why significant drop-off and pick-up space has not been provided for in new or comparatively recent built schools. And local people tell us you should have anticipated this situation and designed the school site or the highway better to avoid these traffic problems. Chairman, we are trying to reduce the number of people who use the motor vehicle to travel to school or anywhere else. That's our aim. Our policy is stated clearly in the Council's new school guidance for housing developers, which says that the expectation to include a drop-off pickup provision on school site does not mean we will cease to promote alternative and greener means of travelling to school. We recognise that walking, cycling and scooting, whatever that is, and public transport are only viable alternatives for some parents and children. Not everybody can do it, depending on their individual circumstances. Moreover, and importantly, it is not our place to instruct or enforce anybody to do anything. We do have a duty to encourage people towards a more environmentally friendly, greener and healthier form of travel where we can, but equally we must ensure adequate planning provision when developing new schools for all possible ways children might arrive in the morning and depart at the end of the day. A couple of months ago, I commented to the planning committee, I think you were the chairman then, vice chair, you're not listening, that the biggest complaint I received from residents living near schools was that planners had ignored the obvious parking problems. Suppose we end up with cars carelessly. Suppose, just think we've got a new school, and we end up with cars carelessly parking or waiting on the highway outside the school. In that case, it causes annoyance and disruption to nearby residents because of insufficient space to park. In that case, it's no wonder that people get really annoyed. Mansfield folk is not here today, Paul, is it really? To give me a bit of a jibe. Mansfield folk, but you are, Anne. Mansfield, a bit of humour, that's what I need. Mansfield folk are practical, common sense people. They call out nonsense when they hear it. If I turned around to them and said, the school near your house wasn't designed with on-site drop and pick-up points because we hoped no one would have to drive their kids to school, their reply would be, I'm not going to swear, it hasn't worked then. I was going to say it hasn't bloody worked, but it's swearing. This motion can only exert limited control over the situation because we are talking about new schools to be built on any land in Nottinghamshire rather than that only on the NCC land, where our influence over project designs is potentially more significant. Our guidance to developers on land presently owned by the council talks of an expectation to include drop-off and pick-up provisions, whereas the active part of this motion speaks of a request to developers and planning authority to make the appropriate land available. Nevertheless, making such a request is the right thing to do. It is what our residents would want. I'm sure you've all had this trouble outside your schools, parking, reckless parking, dangerous parking. It really is a menace.
Yeah.
I have raised this matter at every meeting, and you're vice to that, every meeting where a new school development has been on the agenda. And I have received many complaints and spent many hours talking to residents about their frustrations around reckless and dangerous parking. Reputationally, schools must have a positive relationship with their neighbourhood in which they're situated. This applies even more to new schools that are developing their reputation. Their perceived impact on the immediate community in their first few years, positive or negative, can determine the nature of their relationships with that community for decades to come. The last thing a new school needs is to be seen as a blight on its immediate neighbours, or is difficult for parents and pupils to access daily. That is why this motion seeks to ensure that when new schools are being planned by developers and the council, common sense should prevail as far as possible. Thank you, Chairman, and I second the motion.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cavalieri. I was listening
to everywhere.
I was listening to lots of people. Right, we have a situation where it's now just gone 5:15. The Chief Exec needs to read something from the Constitution.
Which I'm sure is going to disappoint you all enormously. So under the procedure rules in part 2 for full council, paragraph 9 is clear that meetings of the full council will not continue beyond 5:30. If the meeting is not likely to conclude before that time, the matter under debate at 5:15 will be moved to the vote to allow the meeting to conclude by 5:30. So I'm afraid at that point, given that we've ticked beyond 5:15, we need to move this item to the vote.
Thank you, Chief Exec. I realise that hey, we've not finished yet. I realise that there were one or two people that indicated to speak, but it's essential. At the end of the day, we have to follow the Constitution and the legal rules and all the rest of it. And I'm sure, and I hope everyone understands that. So, Chief Executive has explained the situation. We've had the motion moved and seconded. So, as I overheard, I'm sure I heard someone say go to the vote. I think we better go to the vote. So, can we have a show of Councillor McGrath very quickly?
Chair, can I ask the Chief Executive a question? So, surely, if we had an amendment, right, we had an amendment to put forward, and I agree with what you're saying now. So, I'm not getting into this, that, and the other. So, surely that motion should be moved forward with the amendment for next time. I don't know. I'm just it's no good nodding your head. I'm trying to say, if you've amended a motion, right, it's common sense. No, but we've got an amendment.
Thank you.
Yeah,
so if I can bear with me, Penny, just to respond to that question. If it hadn't been moved, that would have been the case. But I'm afraid because it was moved and seconded, it's therefore able to be debated. We haven't got time for the debate, so it can move to the vote. So I'm afraid the amendment doesn't get held over. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you.
Can I
start speaking?
Okay, Councillor Gold.
Can I point out that if we start a debate at 5 past and both the speakers speak for 5 minutes, it's obvious what's going to happen. So can I suggest whoever is responsible suggests another amendment to motion in the Constitution that we don't start a debate at 5 past 5?
But Chair, can I just a brief clarification? Yeah, I mean, a lot of us had a questions, but we're happy with the actual the motion itself, but we have questions about specific things that aren't covered in this. So I can't feel that I can vote for this motion without specific questions. And mine was, does this refer to replacement schools as well, such as at Bramcote College? I wanted that question answered. So if it doesn't, then I won't vote for it. But I don't know whether it does or not.
Okay, well, there's a danger now of getting into a debate, which we can't do. So I think we've had very clear advice and guidance. It's in black and white in the Constitution. The clock is what it is. We've had the motion moved and seconded and explained. The Constitution clearly says, and that's the rules whether you like it or not, that you go to the vote. So I think we need to go to the vote. So let's do that. So.
There's been no call for a recorded
votes.
There's
no recorded votes, anyone? Yeah, we'll get on with it. I don't see any sign. No one's asked for a recorded vote. Show of hands, please, on the motion as it stands and moved and seconded.
Oh, crikey.
No. Is anyone against the? Put your hands down. Anyone against? Any abstentions?
1, 2, 3.
Make it clear.
Eight abstentions.
8 abstentions. So that's
41 for, 8 abstentions.
So we had 41 for and 8 abstentions. So the motion is carried. Right, that's almost the yes. The there's just before you go, this is probably the most important aspect of the meeting. It's the result of the raffle. So thank you very much to everybody who took place today. We raised £143 for the NSPCC in Nottinghamshire. The winner of the bottle of gin is ticket number 409, Councillor Callaghan.
Hey, the next one's the best.
Yeah. The winner of the please. The winner of the fruitcake is ticket 424, Councillor Michael Payne, and who has gone and Mike and Councillor Payne did explain to me during the adjournment that he and Councillor Clark have got a very important meeting again and they have to be at, so that's why he's not here. And the winner of the Prosecco is ticket number 326, who's Councillor Girling. So well done, everybody. And the prizes are in your office for collection.
Don't eat my
So with all that said, we've had a busy full day today. Yeah, okay. Councillors, brief.
Thank you, Chair. Today is the last meeting for our local democracy reporter, Andrew Topping. He's going off to be a Professor of Law and Journalism at Nottingham Trent University, and he's covered this chamber very well. We've not always been on the right side of it, but I'm sure members across the chamber would like to wish him well and for all the public services done.
Thank you. I'm sure that will be duly reported. So, colleagues, thank you very much for your patience and your input today, and have safe journeys home. Thank you.
Well done.